That would work, and I'm going to call you if I need that help.
But seriously, no BS. You ever want to rap or anything? Just talk or just, get weird with somebody. Buddies for life, I think.
I'll drop by. You drop by my place anytime. Good.
What's your address over there? You're on Briar, right?
Briar, 2.
You got a pool over there?
We have a pond in the back. We have a pool and a pond. A pond would be good for you. Natural spring.
Oh, yeah, or the pool or a pond. Anything would be good.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another week of Muskies on Tap. I am your host tonight, Gus Manti, bringing to you the Northern Wisconsin Muskie Opener Preview Pod. We kind of have like a mini mega pod, if that's two words that can be used together right there, but we're also, we do not have the other member here tonight, Max Manti, my brother. He is out of town, rolling the dice on the tables, out in Vegas again.
Guy's got a problem or something.
Yeah, I don't know. He just had to take time off and just head to Vegas. But but that other voice you just heard there is the other counterpart to the pod. We got Brian Eckel. Brian, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Yeah, obviously a first time for just us two running the show. Dropped our dead weight. Now we're out here flying free. Shout out to Max. Though. He's down there gambling a bit, stashing up money so he can buy more musky baits for us. We appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, looking forward to sharing these two guests with you guys. We started out with Phil. How do you pronounce that last name? Guys? Phil Stodola. Yeah, I had a great talk with him. He's a great guy and a funny dude to listen to. And he'll break down everything with Green Bay. So yeah, I think unless you got anything else to add, we can go ahead and dive right into that one.
We'll dive right into it. Max is making that dough, getting the musky baits in. We already kind of took that hiatus from the show season. It's back to hashtag bait buying season upon us. Just gonna be
shout out, Max.
And then right after following Phil, we're gonna have Michael Hanson on from the Hayward area to talk over there. And then if you guys and gals didn't have enough already of the musky content, Brian and I are gonna talk some smart game here in Vilas Oneida County area on the tips and tricks to get her done here. And so yeah, stay tuned for that. So anyways, hopefully you enjoy the interview here with Phil, and then we're going right into the one with Michael. All right, here on the end of the line, we got Phil Stodola from Green Bay with Angler Sport Fishing. Phil, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good, man. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, we're going to be talking about Green Bay Muskies, and I'm sure everybody's got the question, will they be in the Fox River? Are they going to be down there? Where they're going to be? So we'll get into that for sure on everything Green Bay, because this is going to be a full, opener preview podcast for everyone. But before we get into that, let's go with the background on you, because we've never had you on the podcast before. So maybe just start it out with how you came up into fishing, how you got into musky fishing, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So I've always been a fisherman my whole life. My grandpa and I were digging worms when I was barely old enough to hold the shovel. I grew up in West Bend, Wisconsin. My family, my grandparents and then my aunt and uncle had a place on the Pike chain in Iron River, Wisconsin. So we would go up, my parents were both teachers, we'd go up for a week every summer, plus more times during the summer, and fish the Pike chain. A lot of bluegills, a lot of bass, a lot of pike, that sort of stuff at that time in my life. And yeah, I fished a lot that way. And then once I got to like middle school, high school, one of my buddies, George, and I, we really got into fishing big pike. And like, there's not really a lot of musky lakes in West Bend, so we go and fish some of those local lakes all the time. And my goal in life was like to try to catch a 40-inch pike. And I've caught some giant muskies in my life. I still have not. I've netted, pike well over 40 inches. I've caught a 39. I've caught tons of high 30s. I still haven't caught a 40-inch pike, so I'd like to do that still. But anyway, then after high school, the first job I got after that, once I turned 18, the Cabela's in Richfield is like 15 minutes from where I grew up. So I applied like literally I turned 18 in July after my senior year, and I applied like within a week of my birthday. I knew I wanted to work there while I was in school and stuff. So
Get that
got a
discount.
job there, and met a bunch of awesome dudes that were, I mean, just like me. They loved hunting and fishing, stuff like that. So I got to give credit to my buddies Adam Stens and Bobby Grenzer. They were and Dennis Wilson. Those are some of the guys that I worked with at Cabela's that were the first ones that ever take me musky fishing. They're like, dude, if you like catching big pike, you're gonna go nuts over this musky stuff. And I remember Dennis, he's an older dude, and he's so cool, and he took me out musky fishing. And I remember catching a big pike, and he had a follow that day, and I saw the muskie come in and follow it, and I'm like, holy cow, like that day changed my whole life. I'm like, all right, I guess this is my thing now. Like I just lost. We fished, I think, Pewaukee and Okachi Lakes down there, closer to Milwaukee, and it was so fun. I just dove head first into that, and basically, ever since I was 19, I was on the volunteer fire department in my local community. And I was going to school to be a firefighter paramedic. So basically, when I got done, as I was finishing up paramedic school, I was applying for jobs in northern Wisconsin and Minnesota, basically anywhere where I thought I could catch big muskies. And one of my buddies booked a trip actually with the guide on Green Bay, Chris Barch, and he knew I was a muskie guy. Just asked if I wanted to jump in and go along with him on this guided trip, and I said sure. And I ended up catching a 48.5-inch muskie casting on that guide trip,
Nice.
like an hour and a half into it. My first time ever casting on Green Bay for muskies. So I was like, at the time I was single, no wife, no kids, nothing like that. So I was like, well, looks like I'm moving right here. I think my biggest muskie before that was like 37 inches. And I literally applied for 7 jobs in the Green Bay area. And Manitowoc, City of Manitowoc was the first one to offer me a job. And I remember literally Googling, I'm like, all right, it's 25 minutes to Fox Point, 40 minutes to Swamico. I'm like, this will be good. This will work. And I made my lifelong career decision going, I can fish Green Bay for muskies if I go move right here. And I haven't looked back since. It's been really awesome. I met a lot of great people, both through work and through the Muskie Club, the local Muskie Club. I'm sure we'll talk about Titletown some here too. But shout out to my buddy Scott Valesky from work. He had a guide service already started. He started in 2013 with English sport fishing, and basically he saw me as a young kid not that young, but younger than I am now, I guess, on the fire department. And I was just fishing like every stinking day, and he knew it. And I lived in this kind of a decent apartment, but there's a trailer park right across the street, and it was kind of sketchy. So when a friend would come and stay at my house, I would ask Scott if I could park the boat at his house, just to keep people out of it and stuff. And he just saw me going fishing all the time, saw me start catching some real big fish. And eventually we were drinking beer one day in his garage, and he at the time, and I'm bringing this boat back, I could talk about that later too, but I was rocking like a 1978 16-foot Alumacraft with a 9.8 Mercury of the same vintage. And we're sitting there drinking beer in his garage. He goes, dude, you should get your captain's license. I'm like, and then what? Like, what are you talking about, Scott? Like, yeah, right. Like, oh, I'm going to take people in the little tinner here. He's like, no, dude. He goes, you can run my boat. And basically how it works on the fire department, we work 24-hour shifts. So when he's working, I'm off, and vice versa. There's only 3 shifts. So there's only 1 out of 3 days when we're both off. And so it works out really well. We have 1 boat. We share it between the 2 of us. And basically we book our trips. He's a really big walleye guy. He fishes a ton of walleye tournaments. He's very accomplished in that regard. And he does like to remind me that he does catch muskies quite a bit too. But out of the 2 of us, I'm definitely the muskie nut. He's the walleye guy. And then it's just a real good partnership there. So I've been doing that now. This will be my 6th season guiding. I just had to renew my captain's license. So that's where I'm at right now with that. So it's been a wild ride. It's been really fun. And yeah, it's been good. So that's how I got started into the guiding thing.
So you primarily just bring clients out onto Bay Green Bay and then the Fox River there, like throughout Green Bay. Do you fish any inland lakes?
Yeah, I do fish some inland lakes. I really caught my teeth on Random Lake in Sheboygan County. That's kind of halfway between where I live now and where I grew up.
Yeah.
I probably have more hours besides Green Bay. I have more hours probably logged on that lake than any other piece of water. But My best friend does live in Saint Germain, right close to Big Saint there. So, I I kind of joke that I've gotten a little more domesticated now. But when I was younger and he didn't have any kids and stuff, I would go up there and I would just steal his boat. He's an electrician, so he'd be working during the week. I'd show up on a Wednesday. I'd grab his boat and I'd come back for dinner, and I'd be fishing all week or all day or whatever. And I used to get a lot of time in on that Vilas and Vilas, Iron County, a little bit of Oneida County, stuff like that too. Never had as much luck there as some people have. I
It's a little
I don't
different
know.
than Green Bay.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's I mean, don't get me wrong, I get action, but it's not like I go up there and I'm like, all right, here we go.
Well,
But
I mean, I'd probably say the same if I went down to Green Bay just on a whim
sure.
and just started
Yeah.
fishing said weed bar or said
Yeah.
tributary and just assume something's gonna happen when it seems like it's a lot of timing down there. And
Absolutely.
well, you've been at it for a while and you know Green Bay, pretty darn well. What are you seeing this year? What's going on with let's just start with the Fox River. And
Sure.
we just chatted before you got on here and you gave some good insight. So let's
Yeah,
hear it.
yeah. So, I mean, everybody who's watched Keys, who's watched, the shows where guys fish early season, on Green Bay, it's almost always on the Fox. It's usually just chock full of big fish, and it's usually a circus. Like we call it the conga line. Like literally, you go and you get in, and there's certain bays and shorelines and breaks and stuff that are known to hold fish. And you can always tell people that have never been to Green Bay in the spring before because you go on Facebook and on Monday there's some guy going, "Oh, this dickhead cut me off," and blah blah blah. It's like, dude,
You
there's a
gotta.
whole line. You got to find a place and get in there and just fish. Like you're cutting somebody off one way or another. Like if you wait till there's nobody, you're gonna wait till midnight or something. So it's normally packed there.
Are
I
you
don't like.
also,
Oh, go
sorry to
ahead.
cut you off. Are you
No,
also
no.
wrestling like the hundreds of other walleye boats in the area? Because I go over that
Well,
bridge for work a lot, and there are so many walleye guys out there.
yeah, the nice thing about that is that the walleye bite, like when you first get the ice off on the Fox, like March, um, usually March, I should say, like everybody with a boat, whoever even held a fishing pole, goes to the Fox and plays bumper boats out there, jigging for walleyes on the Fox during the day. And even at night now, it's gotten nuts too. But the nice thing is that most of the walleye bite has now moved out, and I mean even on years where we're not this far ahead, which I'll get to that in a second. There's really not that many people that are still fishing walleyes this time of year in the Fox. I mean, there's a lot better bites out on the bay. They're really not staging, they're not post spawn, they're not anything. They just kind of have all moved out, and they're more, not I shouldn't say all of them. Obviously, there's resident fish, blah blah blah. But the mess that you see there when you go over the 172 bridge is not there anymore for walleye guys. So that's at least a plus.
That's good.
Yep.
So you were saying before we got on here something about them netting some muskies
Yep.
pretty darn early this year. So obviously there was a pretty mild winter and kind of led to an early ice off.
Yeah, yeah. So talking about the walleye thing again, normally I get together with a group of my guys from deer camp and we usually take a week and fish the West Shore for spring walleyes. Like the third week in April is right when right when that ice comes off in number 2 park in Ocano and near Peshtigo and all that sort of stuff. If you get out there right away, and normally, I mean, we have it down to a science. If you're up there between like April 21st and April 30th, somewhere in that region, you're going to hit that early and not necessarily right when the ice goes off, but enough that you can get out there and fish. And you're going to get a lot of post spawn fish. But anyway, I tell you that to tell you that we had 70-degree days here in March, and it just everything has been nuts. Like I didn't get to do a lot of spring walleye fishing this year. My wife and I sold our house and bought a different house. We've been crazy busy with all sorts of stuff like that. But I had buddies that were going out and catching fish on the West Shore in the middle of March. So like 4 or 5 weeks early, like insane. Like that doesn't happen. Like normally that's when the Fox is getting started. That's when guys are catching fish in the river in the Fox and maybe getting out into the bay, maybe not. Maybe it's still got open water, but that, you think about like Ocano's probably just off the top of my head, probably 20 miles north of there at least. Like that is not open that time of year. Probably more than 20 if I think about it. But anyway, that's normally a month later that those guys are fishing those walleyes. And it opened up, and it seems like the musky stuff is right on par with that. So I was telling you before we started, I was looking back at Facebook memories, Snapchat memories, and again through the Musky Club, we kind of talk with the DNR biologists, and we get info as to when they're going to go in and net muskies in the Fox, because there's no naturally reproducing muskies in Green Bay. They're all stocked. It's all done through the DNR. So basically, when those muskies come in before season, they're paired up. The DNR will come in and fyke net these fish. They'll pit tag them, measure them, everything like that, and then they'll take eggs and milk from those muskies in order to make more muskies for us. So, like I was getting at, that has happened traditionally. Like May 18th was one that I looked at specifically, and it's usually right in that like mid-May. Any later than that is good for us. A late spring is great, because really we're racing those fish when the opener for us in Northern Zone is obviously Memorial Day weekend. So we're watching all spring going, I hope those fish are still there. I hope they're not done, because these fish, even though they don't actually reproduce, they come into the river and they pair up, and you just see them. You can walk down to the river and see them just swimming shorelines and stuff like they're spawning. So basically, if the water heats up faster, if there's no flow, that just those fish get done with what they're trying to do, and they're out of there. They're gone. So we're almost looking at, I would say, kind of early summer patterns already right now is what I would guess. It's I think it's just because normally for us, the early season for muskies, like the first 2 weeks on a really good year, like 2019 was a great year. And we had like 2 solid weeks where we were catching muskies in the Fox, and we're like, sweet, awesome, this is great. But, I think we're probably 2 to 3 weeks ahead already. So, I mean, only time will tell. We'll see. I'm sure there'll be a ton of people there on Saturday, but I honestly don't. I'm fishing with Kyle and my wife, and I don't think we're going to be in the Fox on Saturday. And that's something that I would not say unless it was pretty drastic conditions.
Have you fished a spring that's been this far ahead and this warm?
Yeah, it's one of those things, I guess. And I don't try to act like I've been here a lot. I moved up here in 2016, so there's guys that have fished this way longer than me, obviously, whatever. But in my experience in the time that I've been here, there's been springs where I didn't see it coming, where we go to the Fox and we'd fish our ass off, and it would be, we heard of like one fish getting caught closer to the mouth, and like, out of hundreds and hundreds of people, you're like, wow, that guy got a big one. That's it. Like, and there's times where you can literally, you're side scanning, right? So you can see, and you're like, there's just not fish here, and there's been other times where we had that heat up early. And then I remember it was a few years ago. I'm not sure exactly the year, but Kyle and I were out doing a little video for the Titletown Muskies Inc. The week of opener, and the water temp was, I think, 72 degrees. And we went out, it was 40 degrees. I remember when I left my house on opening morning, and that water temp dropped like 14 degrees. It was just nuts. And all of a sudden, those fish that should be right up tight to shore we're casting a cast length from shore, casting right to shore where they normally are. And we were marking them on the farthest out on our side scan, tight to the bottom. It's like, well, this is no good. The fish are here, but they are absolutely shut down. And it was another miserable spring to try and catch them in the Fox. So there are other options, obviously, in Green Bay, but I think this is a year where we're going to have to get creative in order to get some consistent action.
Right. There was another thing I was going to ask about that. And from what I've seen up here is that, yeah, we had the early ice off and everything, and kind of the warm March. I think, pretty warm April, but up here it's been actually very mild to almost cold. And
Okay.
I'm seeing a ton. I haven't seen with my eyes any paired up muskies, but I've seen a ton of really beat up muskies the last 2 weeks or so. And I'm also getting reports of people catching pre-spawn fish in over 60-degree water where they're catching walleyes. So there's like a chance that it's kind of all over the board. Well, for sure up here. So I was just wondering if maybe you're going to have that just because of some of the warm-ups. I don't know what happened with the Fox. Did they release a bunch of water? Did you guys get a lot of rain? Because we've been getting a lot of
No,
rain
and
up here.
that's been the tough thing too. So that water temp, you can go on I think it's the U.S. Geological site or whatever, and you can watch for the Fox water temps. And I looked at the 30-day, and it just steadily climbed. And the thing is, we haven't had much rain up until the last. I mean, this week we're getting rain. It rained like crazy today, but if the water gets warm early and there's not flow, I think that flow sometimes can help. If we have a lot of water moving, it can help keep fish in that river longer. But I think that that's kind of a double whammy that we've had that steady warming trend. I was up north, basically in Michigan today, fishing and scouting a little bit, and we had 68-degree water temp way up there, and that's attached to the bay as well. And it's like, all right, well, if that's 68, warm. Yeah, and the Fox, according to that website, it's listed at 69.8 or something like that, but you can just see it just is up and up and up, and like I said, with a very low flow, that is just not a good combination for us for fish being in the Fox and being sassy on Saturday.
I might have the name wrong, but like your big weed flats out actually in the bay, like the shark fins, is that what they're referred to as? Yeah.
Yep.
Are there a lot of fish that will like kind of pair up and spawn like up along the shore and up in the shallower water out there and never go into the Fox, or are like the vast majority of these fish pushing up into like either feeder creeks or the Fox?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, and actually, the Dan Bregeman is the one of the guys from UW Stevens Point. And in the last few years, they wrapped it up a few years ago, but they did a huge telemetry study on Green Bay where they took some of these fish and put a radio tracker in them. And basically they tracked their movement all through the whole year. And those are fish that were paired up that they found either in tributaries or in shallow bays, that they weren't fish that spawned out on the open water. And basically, not to get off on a tangent here, but the idea was they wanted to find out if there was any natural reproduction or possibility of natural reproduction with those fish. And there was less than 1% of actual reproduction of fertilization of any of those eggs. So basically, now the next step with the process, they're going to do another study, and it's in the process. Hopefully they're going to do it. I'm thinking that it's moving forward, is that they're going to do another study. They're going to try and find fish that spawn out on the bay in the open water, and then see if that is a more viable option for if there's more chance of natural reproduction. Because we catch fish every year that don't have a fin clipped, and the biologist says, well, yeah, obviously we could miss one, whatever. But I've seen when they take them out of the hatchery, and it's like, take one, clip the fin, send it down the chute, and like put the pit take in it, whatever. And that was out of Kewanee. Obviously, there's other places, but I mean, it seems like there's a pretty prolific number of fish that don't have a fin clip, so there is a possibility that there is some natural reproduction that they just haven't found. But to answer your question, Kyle and I were kind of joking about that. About, yeah, we're gonna go to Gano's, go to the shark fin and fish summer patterns, because that's normally like August that these fish are setting up on the weeds and everything else, and that's when we start really casting in the summertime. But man, I don't know. It's there's definitely spots out on the bay. And that's something that, people keep pretty close to their chest, but there's definitely spots where fish do pair up, and they are kind of doing the same kind of thing as the Fox on the shorelines out on the bay. But again, it's one of those things where on a good spring, that's going to be a pretty good way to go and a good option to try. But I don't even know if they're still going to be in that spawning kind of spot anyway. I mean, we're going to be trying to find spots that are holding fish that maybe we'd be fishing, third week of the season. It's going to be a little bit, it's going to be different for us for sure. And it is, I mean, if you go north, obviously, hopefully things aren't as far ahead as they would be. But I mean, normally for us, it's like the opener's great. The first week is very good. And then it tails off noticeably after that. And I think we're going to be well ahead of schedule this year with that idea. And that's on a good year,
So yeah. I want to maybe you can give us like the Bay of Green Bay for beginners guide, or just kind of explain like the topography of it, because Gus and I were out there once on the shark fins, and this was, I think, like end of July, I guess like prime time. But when these fish are pushing up into the river, and then like you said, it's good for a couple weeks, and they go into this lull where they scatter back out of there.
Yep.
Is there deep water like basins out there before you get to the shark fins, or like where else are these fish going to scatter to?
Yeah. So basically, like, if you think of Green Bay, like if you think of like, the mitten of Wisconsin, like the lower bay, the crease right at the bottom is where that's the mouth of the Fox River. So when we talk about fall trolling, we talk about the lower bay. That's the Fox. It's not the Fox, I shouldn't say that. It's where the Fox pours out into the bay. If you go over on Highway 43 and look out, you're looking at the lower bay right there. So you can see on the west side, the first trib that comes in is going to be Duck Creek. Basically the shipping channel goes right up the middle, and then the first, launches that you run into on the west shore are going to be Swamico, and then from there's other tributaries going up the west shore. And then on the east shore, you basically hit, there's Bayshore launch, and then you get into the Door County stuff, and it's a lot different from one shore to the other. Like you can go all the way up the west shore, and you're basically looking at shallow, either mud or kind of gravel, not gravel bottom, but definitely not rocks. It's like either muck or mud or sand bottom, some weeds here and there, hardly any weeds. That's kind of why those spots, like the shark fin, get to be so good in the summer, is because the weeds are very scarce on Green Bay. So if you're looking at a map of Green Bay, I mean, maybe 5%, probably less. Actually, if you looked at the whole bay, have standing weeds. And I mean, we talk about weeds. If you go up north and you look at this beautiful lush cabbage bed, we're talking 5 feet of water with this much grass, like, a foot or two of grass, and sometimes it gets taller. But I mean, if you have weeds on your graph and it's summertime, check that out, because that's not something that, I mean, normally when we're fishing, like, there's and it's interesting too, like you think of Lake Michigan, you go out 5 miles and, depending on where you're at, you could be in hundreds of feet of water. Green Bay is really mostly shallow. Like if you look out from the bridge going over Highway 43, like Frying Pan Shoal runs across the whole middle of the bay. That's like 4 feet deep, depending on how the water's up or down.
Wow.
So, I mean, it looks like it's big, expansive, open water, but that whole lower bay probably averages. I mean, the deepest I would guess it gets off the top of my head is like 16, 18 feet aside from the shipping channel. So, I mean, it's relatively flat. And then as you go further north, you get into the mud. The mud is what they always call it. Walleye guys call it in the summer, basically, where you go out and you control like crawler harnesses and stuff. That's going to be, like 30 to 35 feet of water, something like that, just off the shoreline a bit. But until you get up further into Door County, you don't hit deeper water past like maybe 35, 40 feet. So it's pretty shallow overall. And
How deep's the shipping channel? 'Cause I see some like massive barges going in and out
oh
of
yeah,
there. Is that
yeah, it's a legit shipping port, and like in the winter they have to have icebreakers come through and keep that whole shipping channel. Ships come in off of Lake Michigan and go through Sturgeon Bay and come right down the middle of the bay. But most of the time you look at the shipping channel on your graph, you're looking at like 30 feet, give or take, 30 to 40 probably.
is that ever like a fishable option, or do they not really hang out in the
Oh,
channel?
it's it could be, it's not something that we really target, but you go over and you graph like all sorts of stuff down there. I'd love to drop a camera or something and see what, I mean, that's the thing on Green Bay. You got giant catfish, you got giant sturgeon. I mean, there's all sorts of big fish in there where you could be like, oh, look at these big arcs. And then you pull up a giant catfish and you're like, all right, well, that's
Yeah.
not really what we're here for. But,
Mhm.
and even, the sheephead get huge out there. Like there's all sorts of just big fish in there, but it is always something that we've kind of talked about. But really it's such a weird going from like fishing in like where I grew up, Oconomowoc lakes, and you're fishing in 64 feet of water where it came up from 100, and you're throwing mag dogs out in open water or whatever, and then you go to Green Bay and you're like, all right, we're gonna fish this one spot. It's about as big as 3 football fields and it's 5 feet deep, and you're like, oh, that's it. And you're like, this is it, dude. This is the whole deal all day. Like this is it.
Oh man. Do you think trolling is an option for some people right away if like some of these
Yeah.
fish have dispersed out? Because I always hear like on a normal year, fox is great right away, just as you're saying, 1 to 2 weeks or so. And then you don't
Yep.
hear about anything from Green Bay until end of July, early August, when you say they go back in
Right.
the weeds. I don't know who we've talked to this about, maybe not even on the podcast. I know I've just asked people in general. It's like, what do you do in late June and early July? It's kind of like that mythical time period, and just for the people out there, that could be like right now. for some people if the Fox or
Mm-hmm.
any of the other tributaries kind of stink.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's it's one of those things, man. It's a tough gig. I mean, when I first moved up here, I knew guys that talked about finding these stretches of bait that were a mile long and casting rubber into them, in open water, suspended bait over 30, 40 feet. Um, I think it just seems like the last 4 years or so, we've just had so many storms over summer and there's so much different, like the alewives have been coming in early. They've been staying longer. It hasn't gotten as hot as normal. So like things are kind of weird that way where it doesn't seem like the bait really has grouped up the same as it used to. And again, I'm not
Hmm,
long in the tooth here like some of these guys. I don't try to
interesting.
talk like I know it all, but I'm just going off of what I've heard. And we have, my buddy Alex and I have gone out and trolled, middle of June when it's kind of just whatever, like when you're not supposed to be able to catch them. And we have caught them just trolling fall spots, trolling fall crankbaits, like doing our normal program. And I mean, I've caught one. I think I looked up at the picture. June 17th, Alex and I went out and caught 2 trolling. And then July 24th, my buddy Tom and I, we only had a couple hours. It was my birthday. And I'm like, dude, I want to catch a birthday muskie. Let's go drink some beers and troll around. And we ended up poking one. So like it can be done. And it seems like when we do catch fish that way, it's not, the 50s, the 55s, like the giants. But
Okay.
I think it's a viable option. And we did have a day, in the spring that looked pretty bleak like this. It was like I had a guide trip Saturday, Sunday, and we cast it on Saturday, didn't get a muskie. Sunday we were like, all right, and the boys went out and had a couple drinks that night, whatever. I'm like, you guys want to try trolling tomorrow? They're like, yeah, absolutely, sounds good. So we went out trolling and I got crushed on a crankbait, just coming basically like I would late fall. Like I figured, all right, basically if these fish are coming back in the late fall and they're kind of moving down the bay and into the Fox, like if I fish outside of the mouth, if I fish the lower bay kind of stuff here, maybe we can get something to go. And I was trolling a boss shad, which is kind of outside my normal realm, but when you got 12 rods, you can play around a little bit. So I threw one
Yeah.
of those skinny little boss shads out there and I got crushed. And I mean, again, it could have been a pike, it could have been whatever, but it sure acted like a big muskie. So I think
Hmm.
there's definitely something to that. And there's guys that troll on the Fox, just kind of take the channel or troll kind of the breaks and edges, even when guys are casting, and they catch fish too. So it is always a viable option. I know some guys, like I fished with a buddy today, and he's like, "Well, I don't want to cast. I don't want to troll if we can get them casting." I'm like, "Well, I just like catching fish, man. I don't. I mean, especially if I got a guide trip, man. I'm like, well, I'd much rather catch one than not, or give it, whatever. But it's definitely on the table. I'll say that. And if
Sure.
a person wanted to try it, it's definitely not a bad idea. It's definitely, those fish don't disappear. They don't vaporize. They're somewhere. They're out there. So,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
it's
that's
weird that telemetry study, they had fish that came out of the Fox and blasted up all the way around the bay, all the way up to Michigan to Death's Door, all the way through Door County and did a giant loop. And then there were other fish that they tagged that stayed in the lower bay all damn year long. They just stayed down there. So it's like big bucks. They got a mind of their own. Some of them go everywhere and some of them don't leave home at all. So it's definitely it's not like fishing in the fall where the muskies are following shad and there's just fish everywhere. You mark multiple fish, as you're driving each piece of structure. You should mark a bunch of fish in the fall, but it's definitely on the table for sure. I definitely would see at least one day this week I'll probably end up trying to troll for sure.
nice. I guess, I mean, I think we probably got it all covered for, people in the Bay and the Fox River, but I guess if there's some tips on lures, like typical, maybe like a typical 2 or 3 lures you would cast, and then maybe a typical 2 or 3 trolling lures that you'd put out.
Sure.
Maybe give the people some insight on that.
Yeah, yeah. So whatever your favorite small bucktail is, whether it be a single like okay, so for me, I've had uncanny luck on double eight spankies any time of the year on Green Bay. Like if I'm at the end of my rope, I'm losing my mind, I don't know what to do, I grab a black spanky and I just throw it till I feel a little bit better. It's like that's what I do. But I mean, Huntsy Tail Bangers. Shout out Kyle Hunsader, Carl, my man.
Oh yeah, shout
He
out.
caught 3 or 4
Shout out.
on the opener last year. He fucking crushed it last year on the opener. I don't
Yeah,
know if I can
and
say
Clayton did
that.
too.
Yeah. Clayton poked one too. So yeah, I mean, bangers are a very good option. For anybody coming to Green Bay, Paul Lucas at North Shore Bait in O'Connell is stocking Huntsy Tails as well. So if you're coming, you can get them at Smokies, or you can also get them in Oconto at the bait shop in Oconto. So I just talked to Paul today. If you're coming in the summer, he's looking at getting some more baits in there for the summer casting, bite, and the trolling stuff as well. But anyway, so bangers, spankies, Meps, Musky, Marabou, things like that. Small, single-bladed bucktails have always been very good. Rabid, squirrel, whatever kind of small bucktails that you like, have been real good. 2019, the year I talked about a little bit earlier, was like the year of the swimming dog. We were just killing them. We couldn't keep them off swimming dogs. I think we caught fish almost every single day. I caught my biggest fish casting that year, 52.5. My biggest casting fish, I should say. And then we had multiple fish that were 50, a lot of high 40s. Like, dude, they were just creaming the swimming dogs. So like that, like any typical musky fisherman, then I went and bought like 20 of them at the show the next year, and they wouldn't eat them again. So that kind of sucked. But I'm pretty excited about the small Poseidon that they just came out with. I was throwing that today, and the 8-inch whale tail is another one. 8-inch whale tail, mid Medusa, like a regular dog or a double dog. Any of those smaller profile rubber baits are something that I've had a lot of luck on. I know when Nick Ambrose was on from Hammer Customs, he mentioned how much I hate glide baits, and he actually made the joke of naming one after me because I hate them so much. If you can catch fish on glide baits or twitch baits, that's a good option too. I won't do it. You won't see me trying it because it's not.
You want to be covered in water?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a lack of rhythm or what my problem is, but I can't do it. But they will eat glide baits. Top water is a viable option too. I have a video. I don't have a ton of actual fishing content on the English Sport Fishing YouTube page, but there is an awesome video of my buddy Wechter. Caught a 50-inch muskie on a fat bastard in the Fox, and he just crushed it right by the boat. It was friggin' unbelievable. And his reaction is priceless too. If you get a chance to check that out, that's
I'll have to watch
that's
that.
a really fun video. Yeah.
I don't think I have.
It's
Is that what your YouTube is? English sport fishing or
Yep. English sport fishing is the channel. I do pond bait demos on there too. That's kind of been a thing that I've been doing the last 5 years or so. I should say I'm in season 5 right now. I with my home purchase and all that other stuff we're doing this year, I'm way behind. Normally I have those out right after the Wausau show, and I kind of get them out before season. But excuse me, I do have a couple of them out for season 5. I did Bam Bam Baits. I did the Bowfin and Bowfin Junior, and then I had David and Goliath Baits on, and then sneak peek this week coming up is going to be Hammer Customs. I got a fill bait and
let's go.
Chain hammer. So I had to have Jamie run the fill bait for me because I suck so bad.
I was just about to say, how did you run that fill, huh? They retrieved it.
Yeah. I said you've been promoted. You've been promoted to on-screen personality.
That's hilarious.
Yep.
Oh my god.
So yeah, that's a lot of fun. Check that out if you want. But the other thing I want to talk about too is Titletown Muskies Inc. If you got a minute for that too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let us know what you guys got going on and
Sure, absolutely. So I talked about it a little bit. I'm the vice president of Titletown Muskies Inc. Kyle Hunsader of Huntsy Tales is the president. When I moved up here, I joined the Muskie Club, and it changed my whole life. I met Jamie, I met Tyler, I met Tom, I met Tyler Herman, I met Alex, I met all these great dudes that fish like crazy on Green Bay. And I can honestly say if I wouldn't have joined that Muskie Club, I would not be guiding today. There's so many good guys in this club. Guys, like I said, I was running a 16-foot tinner, but I had a fireman schedule so I could jump in and fish. And I ended up fishing with all these great guys, learning a bunch of stuff and putting a lot of time in with them. And it's just a great group of guys that we got. We do a ton of different events. I have the thing I just shared we just shared it on our Facebook page, but we have a casting tournament on Green Bay, August 24th. If you go on Facebook and you go to Titletown Muskies Inc. Chapter 4 page, you can get info on that. We'd also do a kids outing on September 28th. So basically, the details are there. Basically, I think it's from 7 to 15, ages 7 to 15. Kids can come out fishing. They have to have a parent or guardian, somebody come along with them to supervise a little bit. But basically, we have like, I think we had over 10 kids last year that we set up with basically a guide and a first mate. It wasn't necessarily all guides, but it was people from the club that wanted to take a kid out fishing. We had people come along, and Scott Scarpelli actually got one of the kids caught a 52-incher last year in the kids outing. So it was freaking awesome. And he never caught a muskie before. I mean, it was absolutely awesome. It was really, really fun. So that's a neat thing. Anybody can sign up for that. Basically, they just have to submit a short essay. Again, the info is going to be on our Facebook page. And then we do have tentatively, we have a trolling tournament that we're going to be doing in October as well. And that's something that I'm super fired up about. We don't have very many tournaments on Green Bay. The casting tournament's been something that's been going on for a couple years now through the club. And then this trolling tournament is something that we did a fundraiser last year, my wife and I, for our adoption thing. And then a few years ago, they did a benefit for one of the club members who had cancer, and he ended up passing away. But it was a great tournament. It was always a really fun event, and they're going to try and bring it back as kind of a fundraiser for the club and stocking and stuff like that. And that's always a ton of fun. Like, you see guys show up that like I said, there's not a lot of competition available on Green Bay. There's not like many tournaments, so the people show up for these tournaments. It's a lot of fun, and there's always food and drinks after and bullshitting and stuff. And we'll have a ton of raffle prizes and stuff like always. So yeah, if you go on our Facebook page, you can get the details for all those different events. But doing a lot of fun stuff. We fundraise. We do what we can to do for research, fisheries, and then obviously if we're getting kids out fishing too. So if you have a local muskie club, whether you're in the Green Bay area, come check us out. We have meetings the second Wednesday of every month. And if you're somewhere else, like the best way I can describe it is like, if you go to a party, you get dragged there, somebody takes you to the party, you don't know anybody. If you find one guy that fishes, and especially muskie fishes, you're like, I'm going to talk to this dude all night. You're my guy now. Like, you're my guy. We're talking, we're hanging out. Every single person that comes to a muskie club meeting got up off their couch, turned off their TV, and came down there because they love muskie fishing. Like, that's the place to be. That's where you want to go, So like, it's just a lot of fun. We have a great group of people that run the club and everything else, and a great group of members too. It's a really fun thing that we have going. So it's pretty great. Definitely if you get a chance to check out any of our events, they're always a lot of fun.
That's sweet. Thanks for all that info, Phil. And I mean, I was pumped to meet all you guys this past show season. We got to
we had a good time.
One booth away from you. Yeah,
Sure.
we were bullshitting all weekend and drinking a couple brews, and that was a lot of fun. And appreciate you guys having me down as well for that seminar that I had.
That was awesome too, for sure.
Meeting in April, I believe.
Yep.
My memory serves. Yeah. That was a lot of fun.
You got to see how we run things there. That's
yeah. And you guys run a good show there, and you get a lot of people to show up, and I think that's a really good thing, and it really shows just how great of a job you guys do with all the fundraisers and stuff. And I'm surprised that you guys don't do as many tournaments down there on Green Bay, to be honest. It seems like that's like a thing here and other inland lakes, but then Green Bay, it's just Green Bay. And
yeah, do you know how many boats you had like in last year's casting tournament?
Oh, that's a good question. I had to work that day. I wasn't able to be there. Carl will be able to tell you off the top of his head, I'm sure, but I don't want to guess. I know it was well attended. There was a lot of fish caught. There's some big fish caught. But I couldn't tell you how many boats off the top of my head.
Sure.
Good showing though.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
Sean Josephson and Ryan from Keys Outdoors won it a couple years ago. I mean, like I said, it's fun when we have those tournaments, because I mean, guides show up, guys that fish, local guys, non-local guys. Like, it's a fun thing, even just to bullshit afterwards. Go have a beer. Even if you didn't catch a fish, go down there and kind of rub elbows with some of these guys that you don't normally see, except either at the boat launch if you're local, or at the shows. And that's really the only time you get to actually talk to people.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
as far as tournaments go, it's funny, they always talk about the infamous PMTT on Green Bay, and it was before my time. I've only heard secondhand about it, but yeah, they ran it apparently.
I heard about that
in the summertime, and the cutoff. So if you think about Green Bay, like I said, that lower bay, from the Highway 43 bridge, basically what you can see there, if you draw a line from like Point Sable straight across to like Longtail south of Swamico, that's where they drew the cutoff. You couldn't go north of there. And in the summertime, all the spots are north. And they were telling them, they're like, dude, nobody's gonna catch a fish. Like, you guys are not, and again, not to throw shade at anybody running these tournaments. It's not my deal. I'm not a tournament guy, whatever. But that's what I heard secondhand from people, that they're like, dude, this isn't gonna work. And I want to say it was a championship. Don't quote me on that. I could be
so.
It wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been. That's the wrong time of year. But anyway, nobody caught a fish. Nobody in the whole PMTT caught a stinking fish. It's like, well, yeah.
So
yeah, I could have told you that one. You know,
instead
like,
of adjusting the boundaries, they just say, oh, screw it, this place sucks, we're never going back.
I think they kind of just, they got burned a little bit there, and they're like, well, we're never doing that again. And that's, again, second, third hand, I have no idea. I never fished anything of that nature, but that's kind of what I've heard, is that they're like, well, we are not going back there.
It would be sweet if they put like the third leg out there one year. Like is the third leg usually in August, Gus?
Yeah, late August.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
That would be sweet. I would be sweet, but it would bum me out a little bit, because there'd be a lot more dudes around, but it'd be pretty neat to see what guys can come up with.
Yeah.
It would be cool just to see what, if you get a good day that time of year, it'd be like, whoo, you put up some fish.
Yeah, they haven't been to a big body of water. I mean, I guess Minnesota, there's the big lakes, but they haven't been to. They used to do St. Clair all the time, and
I was gonna say, I remember Pete talking about going out to St. Clair for that.
Yeah, I don't know why, or they wouldn't. I would love to go have an excuse to go fish that body of water,
right?
One day. Yeah, and that answers the question that I had about the Green Bay, goose egg. I knew that happened in one of the events. I just didn't know that there was like the freaking cutoff that low in the bay.
So, and again, I don't want to throw shade at anybody that runs anything, but that is exactly what I heard from multiple different people. So if I'm giving that story wrong, that's only second and third hand, but that's basically, I heard that story more than once from different people. So
if there's any moral to that just says that in Green Bay the fish move a lot in certain times of year. They're just truly where they should be. They're not, like, obviously people can go find new bites, but like there's a reason everybody goes to the West Shore on August 1st or whatever.
That's the thing that kills you on the inside. Like, it just, fishing Green Bay specifically is just a slow death on the inside, because you just go, like, it's in the spring. So the spring's a good example. So there's been times where me and Kyle are like, all right, man, like, we're going to do something really smart today. We're not going to go to the Fox. That's what everybody does. We're going to go fish somewhere else, wherever. And we're like, dude, there's got to be fish there. It's probably going to be sweet. Like, we're going to be the man. We're going to figure something out. We're going to be friggin' awesome, right? And then you go, you catch shit, and somebody catches a 56 out of the Fox, and you're like, damn it, we're so stupid. What are we thinking? It's like, oh, we should have. And like in the summer too, it's like there's other places to go. And sometimes it's unbelievable. Sometimes it's lights out. You go somewhere totally different from the main community spots. But I can't tell you how many times it's been, because I know a lot of that. You go out there enough that you recognize most of the people, especially on a weekday. You know who's out there for the most part. So, like Jamie, one day I was running a guide trip. Jamie was out there way early. I think I started my guide trip at 6 o'clock. He was out there earlier than me, fishing for hours. He left the shark fin for probably 40 minutes, and he went to a different weed bed, tried it out, maybe an hour, came back, and he's like, I said, how'd that go? He goes, oh, it sucked. Nothing happened. I go, yeah. We moved 2 giants, and my client lost one. I said, you missed it. Like, that's the thing. It's like when the window opens, and like back in the day, like 7-8 years ago, when I moved up here, Longtail was like the spot in September, like just south of Sharkfin, south of all that stuff, south of Swamico. This big long point is called Longtail Point, and it's basically just a big flat. Everything we're fishing in the fall is just big dumb flats, and there's just shad there, and the muskies go there. It's like, it's nothing. It's
outrageous. Not very visually pleasing, visually stimulating. You just
talk about visually not pleasing. You can go see the beautiful vistas of the Georgia Pacific paper plant at the Fox and smell it too. It's nice. But yeah, anyway, yeah, I mean, pretty much you're just, if you overthink it sometimes, you're going to be, I mean, like Forrest Gump would be the best muskie guide ever on Green Bay because he's just going to, you told me to run super shads, drill sergeant. Like I'm doing it. Like we're good. Like I'm doing it. And like there's times where you try and think out of the box and it's pretty sweet and it works. And there's times where you think out of the box and it just kicks you right in the nuts. And it's like it's a flip of a coin what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway, what I was getting at with the longtail thing is that it used to be you'd go out there and there'd be 100 boats on that longtail point on a Saturday. And all of a sudden, you're trolling all day, 8-10 hours, and all of a sudden the window would open. You go, oh, that guy's got one on. That guy's got the net out, and it's like, get ready. And literally, it's like whatever those fish, and I've said it 100 times in different speaking engagements and stuff. I always say the Muskies on Green Bay, don't read the Muskie Hunter magazine. Like it's not on Moon necessarily. It's not on, weather change, blah, blah, blah. And those things all matter. Don't get me wrong. Like, but it's. I don't know. It's not necessarily sunrise, sunset, moonrise, moonset, anything like that. But when they go, I mean, I've had it where I've been on the West Shore and somebody is 11 miles away, way on the other side of the bay, and we're all trolling and they text me, I just got one. And then 30 seconds later, I'll go off and we'll catch one too. And it's like, whatever they got, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, whatever's going on there.
Definitely Bluetooth.
This is the time to bite. And then they all bite. And it's like, well, what the hell was that? Like, why? And I can't tell you how many times some of the biggest fish I've ever caught have been middle of the afternoon, blue sky days, bullshit. Like, Joe Booker would say, stay home and cut the grass on that day.
Yeah.
Fucking, I don't know. It just works.
Big girls
and then they bite and you're like, I don't know why that fish bit, but I'm really happy it did. And I'm just happy to be here. I don't know what the heck's going on, but that's cool. That worked out that way,
The Muskies got their own little People's Inc. Meetings.
Yeah, right.
Out.
They're like, all right, all these guys are fishing the peak of the major. We're gonna bite 2 hours after that.
Bright bright sun, and no wind.
Really good.
Everybody goes into the bar at Gano's for a burger at noon. That's when we're all gonna eat too.
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
that probably happened to us, Brian, when we were out there eating at Gano's. They were eating like right as that storm was ending, and then we got back out
spot.
There.
It is a nice.
It was
spot.
nice.
It's a great.
Very nice. Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, you started us off with all these great knowledge bombs and a very well said explanation on how people can tackle it this coming weekend, and then you left us with it's all just a big guessing game. These great.
Yeah, well, anybody that tells you they know everything is trying to sell you something. So it's hey man,
Muskies are Muskies.
Exactly. The best you can do is just go out there and be out there. Carl always says you can't catch them on the couch. So I mean.
Time is fish.
I don't know what we're gonna do. We're gonna do something like John Gillespie or whatever says. I don't know. We're gonna try something.
Something like that.
I don't know. We're gonna fish. We're gonna do something.
Well, before we transition out, do you want to plug in your phone number, whatever, how they can contact you for a guide?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, Angler Sport Fishing again is the company name. We're on Facebook, Instagram. Angler Sport Fishing Phil is my Instagram, YouTube. You can call me, text me 262-323-4155, or you can send us an email at info@anglersportfishing.net. And then our website as well for the company is anglersportfishing.net.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Book a trip with them. I know if you get a trip with Phil when he's trolling, you get the first mate Jamie out there clearing rods for you.
Yeah, if he's available. That's always. I mean, I should start charging extra for that. He's pretty good luck. I got a lot of guys that they book and then they go, if I come that day, is Jamie gonna be able to come? And it's like, yeah, he can come. All right, I'm in.
Nice.
I always tell people, and like the trolling thing. I mean, some guys don't like trolling. It's like, listen, you can come out and troll. We're gonna turn on some tunes. If you want to have, I can't drink beers while I'm guiding, but if you want to have some beers, have some snacks. Like we're gonna have a nice time. I always tell people I don't charge any extra for my singing, but it is part of the deal,
That might be the best part.
And it's funny too. I always ask people like, "What kind of music do you like?" And they might say this or that, whatever. And I'm like, and it kind of vibe them out a little bit. But I'm like, listen, I'm not telling you what to do, but some of the biggest fish we've ever caught in this boat have been with like Snoop Dogg on or like 2000s hip hop. So I mean, you want me to put on radio on Pandora? I'll do it. I'm just saying, if you don't, that's fine. But It is. That's probably, you should probably cut that out. That's a pro tip. I don't want to let that sneak out of there. Take that out.
All right. I'll take it out. I'll
Yeah.
bleep it.
Just bleep them all, make them guess.
I'll just
Sure,
bleep
sure.
it. People are gonna be like, "What on earth is he?" I gotta book a trip with him now and find
What's
out.
this guy talking about?
Just
We'll have to get you back on like later in the summer, see how your year's going, and see if
man.
see if and radio has done you any tricks.
I hope so. That's the best trick I got, I think.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Phil.
So if you watch that video that I was talking about on the Fox, you can hear Snoop Dogg is on in that video.
Really?
No joke. You
It's
catch that
proof.
50-incher.
No kidding. That's awesome. All right. Well, everybody go check out sport fishing on everything. And good luck to those fishing Green Bay. And
might need it.
Hopefully, might need it this year.
If you find the fish, shoot me a text.
Yeah.
Everybody's an open book this weekend.
Yeah.
Seriously. Well, thank you so much, Phil, and can't wait to get you on again because I know that I myself, Brian, and Max, well, he's not able to be on today, but we'll have more questions about Green Bay because I had a bunch, but I didn't want to get into some crazy rabbit holes.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll have to see if Jamie can drive us around one day. You can come down and troll, and then I can have beers too. That'd be a fun day on Green Bay. We could do a little trolling.
Live podcast. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Then they might have to charge for my singing if that's the case.
Yeah. You want to sing us an outro here?
No, I don't.
Not enough
beers. You got to book for that kind of treatment. You got to be a paying client for that.
Sounds good. All right, Phil. Take her easy.
Yep. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Please use the restroom and get your snacks for this next part of the interview.
Pittsburgh. Is no result.
Now here on the line, we got Michael Hanson with our Hayward correspondent tonight. We just had Phil on, and now we're going to talk about the Hayward area. So for those that are going up to that, region of the state, this is where you're going to get kind of your little opener preview. So we'll kind of chop it up about, current conditions and all that good stuff, Michael. But before we go any further, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I was musky fishing all day today. And even though it was a bad day out on the water as far as catching, it was a great day because we were out catching or, fishing for muskies. So I'm doing well. I can't complain. The northern season's right around the corner. So I'm jacked.
How long have you been camping out down south, fishing the southern side of the state?
Just over a week. Yeah, just over a week I've been down here. So, opener's really cool and stuff. But I know it's extremely busy in the southern part of the state when it comes to opener. And I just didn't want to deal with that. Plus I knew, typically openers are tough and, takes time and money to come down here and do this. So I wanted to make sure that those water temps were up a little bit and kind of let the water settle down a little bit.
Nice. So how has it been going, and kind of what are temps down there, I guess, to
temps down here, I've been on river systems, and I've been on lakes. Lakes I've been on primarily the Madison chain, anywhere from 3,000 acre bodies of water on up. They've been anywhere from that 64 to 66 degrees. Mm-hmm. These are quite deep, clear bodies of water, especially now that they have zebra mussels. So they're going to take a lot longer to warm up than what they used to when I lived down here. That's for sure. But,
interesting.
Things are starting to heat up. Definitely. The fish are just starting to get active down here, it seems like, but we've got some nice fish, and we've had some real hard days down here too, but That's pretty typical for the first month of the Southern Muskie opener. And I would say it's pretty typical for the first month of the Northern Muskie opener too. You know, it's tough. There's fish being caught, but it takes time.
Yeah, it definitely takes time, and just kind of knowing what to do is always the question. And it, honestly, I think the hardest part is like the thing that worked last year is almost not gonna work, you know, the year after. And with this being the case this year, I mean, our spring is different, I guess. I don't know, early, one could say. I mean, ice off went early, but then it cooled off a good bit. I mean, were you seeing things progress fairly normal when you were around Hayward and some of your lakes there, you know, when you're out like bass and walleye and stuff?
Yeah, you know, it's progression it's weird to say, you know, or it's hard to put it because we started with a way above average weed growth. I mean, I was out on the ice just before a lot of these lakes actually opened up, and the weeds were so green, so tall. So we're above average in that sense, but you know, yeah, water temps are right there. I know it opened up soon, sooner than has in a long time, but it took a long time for it to actually warm up. So I think honestly things are right on par from where they were any other year that we had with a normal winter. It seems like these fish normally spawn around this time all the years I've been up here, you know, or within a few days at least. You know, it's not like it was a week earlier by any means. I think these things are kind of like turkeys. It's the same thing with walleyes. You know, the Fox River, I always saw like, you know, yeah, these walleyes prefer this low 40 to like 42-degree water temperature, if I remember correctly, to spawn. But I've seen them spawn regardless that first week of April. Like that's the hardest spawn that you see is that first week of April, whether the water temps are 38 degrees or they're, you know, a little bit warmer than that. So I think they key in on that sunlight. You know, like they're going to do their business regardless.
Yeah, and that's the same thing to be said when you're just saying like the ice came out early, but yet here we are with on par normal water temps in the lakes. It's just like it almost nature found a way to just kind of even it out with a mild May and rain and kind of, I don't know. We had some pretty sketchy low water kind of going around here. Did you kind of have that where you were like at ice off and there's like no rain? Or how is that by you?
Yeah, everything was super duper low, without a doubt. But things are filling up decent. I mean, we're getting a decent amount of rainfall now. You know, so I wouldn't say everything's up 100%, but it came up nicely. And as long as we continue to have some rain this season, unlike last year, we can see that kind of stay stable, which is good. But yeah, pray for rain, pray for wind. Wind means rain. I know not a lot of people like fishing in that stuff, but we need it.
Yeah. We do need it.
If I'm catching fish, I like it. Otherwise, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't blame you. Yeah, we were out in some serious shit today, boys. Let me tell you.
No kidding.
And we had one bite, and it was such a juicy day. But I have never been. I was pretty frightened out there.
How big were the rollers?
What's that?
How big were the rollers?
It wasn't so much the wind; it was the thunder and the lightning. We were on a river. Scary. So,
oh boy,
you know, when you're on a river, you're kind of stuck in a place, so you just kind of take shelter and pray, and that's just what we did. So
here you are. You survived. That's good.
Yeah, I know. I think there's a couple people that would probably wish I didn't survive.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about them.
I was gonna say, I'll meet these people. I'll show them. Show them the real Michael too. Yeah, show them a thing or two. Yeah. I mean, side note, this has got to be, man, we're bad at this. This has got to be like the fourth time you're on, I think. Maybe.
Yeah. Third? I don't know. I think this is a third time. Third time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
A couple interviews and Yeah,
Oh,
well, that's fine. And I'm stumbling all over the place. I just have so much fun on these things with you guys. You guys are always such a blast. So sorry if I say things I'm not supposed to.
that's
It
all
makes
right.
it
That's
even
what we
better.
like. That's what we like to do around here is just keep it not PG and yeah, really just, bullshit around and talk smart every once in a while. So
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well, I'm gonna tee up. Hopefully, I'll tee up here for some smart talk. For your openers in the past in Hayward, are you choosing your opening day lake choice based off of like a warming trend or water temps? Are you typically staying mobile, like starting at a smaller stain lake and going to a bigger clear one, depending on what you're seeing, or how do you
Yeah,
decide?
I'm gonna stick to lakes that either have a stain and or current. Um,
mhm.
and typically lakes that we have around here that have a substantial amount of current in them are going to be a dark stain body of water. So, yeah, I prefer the darker stains than anything that has some sort of current in it. Earlier on in the season, just seems to get them going faster, whether that's based on water temperature or just moving water. Moving water forces fish to move. If you're moving, you're expelling energy. If you're expelling energy, you're going to eat. So that's kind of what I pretty much look for right off the bat opener, um, regardless of water temperatures. Because again, I know these fish are going to be in a funk. Um, you can log on to Facebook after opening weekend and you might see 12 fish total in your feed that were caught and be like, oh man, these guys all caught them. Why didn't we catch any? Well, that's 12 people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
12
it's
to
really,
That's what
it's
it
800.
really
is. It's
not,
no different than
really not
Green Bay.
many.
You see all the success on Green Bay, but how much you never see the failures of Green Bay, with
Or
the
the
amount of
other,
boats that go out there. So
yeah.
the main thing is when you're going out there, just know early season, the first month of musky fishing is going to be a crapshoot, or a bigger crapshoot than what it normally is. So you just got to work hard and, slow things down, play around with baits and really hit spots really hard and well. These fish aren't moving around. So you kind of got to get it on top of their heads this time of year.
Is there
So,
is there anything like in specific you could see at a Stain Lake on opening weekend that would make you want to go to a clear lake?
Oh, man, great question. No, not necessarily, unless if we had like some super major bug hatches this time of year, which, yeah, we have bug hatches all throughout the year, but, I'd have to see something very substantial for that to happen, but that won't. Yeah, I mean, we'll be lucky to see that even with these warmer temperatures mid-June here,
sure.
so that is an excellent question. Like, I I have no words to, or I have no thoughts in my mind that would make me change,
Clip that,
So
clip that. I'm just,
probably not.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. No, dude. I mean, I hear you there. I mean, we banged our head against the wall last year doing mainly just shallow stain stuff, and then I think Brian left to go home, and Max stayed up an extra night, and we were like, "What do we have to lose? We're gonna go hit a deep, like a clear lake, a larger lake," and all of a sudden it was just like an aquarium. Muskies were everywhere and wanting to
Sure,
eat, and I think we went like 0 for 6 that night, and we're like, "That's as many bites as we got all weekend," and it's like, why didn't we go here first? And
sure.
I can't
Oh,
remember the
see, and
signs on
that's
that,
so
but it's
cool.
just, yeah, it's random.
That's awesome. See, and that's the thing about your guys' area too. Like, you have some options. Granted, we have options over here without a doubt, but
You gotta
for
drive
me
far.
to go to the next best musky lake, if I'm looking for big fish, it's going to be a long time for me to get over there. So, yeah, I don't know. I have confidence in those shallow or stained bodies of water with current.
Mhm.
I've always loved current. I fished a lot of rivers growing up. And when you can read current within a lake or a lake that already has a pile of current in it, those fish just seem to come alive a little bit sooner.
Yeah, that's something we're definitely working on. But something I was gonna ask you about baits. We'll wait a second to get into that, but you kind of brought up something about like moving slow through a spot. And I was gonna it's actually something that I'm curious about because we're gonna try and, lake hop. We're gonna, find the bite, find what lake is kind of going, but like also it's spring, the water's cold, you want to move slow. Um, are you preferring moving through spots at slower paces and picking your spots carefully, or are you fishing at like a pretty moderate pace to find the active fish? Like, what do you, I mean, obviously it's conditions aside. I mean, it could be terrible weather, and if you're fishing too fast, you'll never see a damn thing. But
Sure.
what are your kind of thoughts on like how fast you're gonna fish?
It's not necessarily like when I say like moving slow, it's not necessarily like my baits are moving slow.
Okay.
I'm going to throw slow moving baits like glide baits or slow moving top waters and things like that. But there's also a speed aspect that I'll throw into that too. But the main thing is when I'm looking at these bodies of water, I know where these fish are as far as spawning goes. You know, so I want to hit those areas very thoroughly. Especially if they're really complex weed areas. That a lot of times, whether when they're done with that spawn, they're just sitting in those weeds and weed pockets, and these weed pockets are so dense around them, and they sit down so deep that it's hard for them to actually see a bait. These muskies rely on their vision to find the fish that they want to hunt, and then they rely on everything else to really find out where that bait fish is so they can attack it. So you got to hit everything very thoroughly, and it makes it tough to cover a lot of water, and a lot of people want to cover a lot of water to find active fish. I get that, but there's times and places, the spring and the fall especially, where you need to hit those prime areas very thoroughly. I mean, hell, even the summer prime spots, I hit them really, really thoroughly, especially at night when it gets darker. So
I agree with that
I
for
think,
sure.
yeah, I mean, you kind of are leading into it, but do you ever spend time night fishing opener? Like if you move fish during the day and they're not active, are you going to hang out into the dark at all?
I should do it more. I should do it more, to be honest with you. But I mean, there are certain lakes that I will go out at night and target muskies, typically Cisco-based waters, because especially opener around this time, those fish are either just starting to spawn or they're still staging to spawn. And if they're staging, they're going to open up their mouths a lot easier. So, yeah, I should do it more, but since I fish so much at night during the summer and the fall, I try to try to get my quota of sleep for the year,
Get it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tried to in advance over the winter, and I don't know if that's even gonna cut it.
No, I think I did the same thing, and it made me like to sleep more, which is scaring me. I don't know if that's just getting old or the whole trying to sleep more in the winter thing. I have no idea, but
I'm
guessing
right
it's
there
getting
with you. I don't know. I wish I knew the answer there, to be honest. Oh,
Mm.
that's funny.
But yeah, I mean,
So,
and I do want to touch in on that speed thing. So,
oh yeah,
um, as far as like baits moving fast or slow, yeah,
sure.
we think moving slow baits during the spring, or that's what 90% of the musky articles that we've ever read about the spring has been, talked about. Um, there's times like we were down here 3 days ago. I had a crankbait on. It was loaded with weeds, and I'm just ripping this thing back to the boat, ripping it as fast as I can. I pull this bait out of the water, and this muskie comes flying up at like 40 miles an hour,
Oh
mid
my
40
God.
inch fish, and is just looking for this bait. So sometimes getting things moving faster can help you too. So I know the Larry Dahlberg's lure, the Mr. Wiggly. Okay.
Right.
Have you guys ever seen anything like that? I
I
mean,
know
they
what it
used
looks
to,
like, but I've never thrown it before.
Yeah, so they commercially made them for a little bit, but they didn't necessarily make them the way that they should have been made. But I mean, those Wigglies are a perfect example. You are ripping this thing, you're snap, 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 snap. You're loading this bait up, and then you're just burning it for 3 or 4 reels as fast as you can. Then you pause it, and then you snap, snap, snap. And once you start reeling that thing again, it's amazing how fast these fish come up and blow up on it. It
Yeah,
is
that is.
so don't underlook speed this time of year. So this is where like a lot of people have told me like, oh, you throw Medusas, that's way too fast. No, make it look like it's moving fast,
Are,
but
are
it's
you
still
giving it
moving slow.
you giving it a
You know,
longer
with the,
pause then if you're ripping them fast and then you're letting them sit and a little death pause for a couple seconds and then ripping them back?
no, it's no different than my summer tactics. It's make the bait look like it's moving faster than what it is. Essentially.
Mm.
Tiny taps, a lot of slack in the line after each one so that you're barely loading that rod tip up and just letting that do the work for you. So that's where jointed crankbaits really work well in the fall. I know I'm all over the place. I'm talking all over the place, but
That's
we
all
need
right.
to talk about it. Jointed crankbaits can excel in the fall because you can work them really, really slow. And they look like they're moving fast because of that added action. It's not slowed down
True.
because it's a wide wobble from a straight model crankbait. So,
Right.
that illusion of looking fast without moving fast can make those fish go ballistic.
That definitely that makes sense. And I just off the top of my head, I forgot that I never even mentioned this in our any of our intro outro thing at all. But when I was just down in northern Illinois with Austin Wiggerman, we had a gnarly cold front. We were dealing with about same temperatures as you, like 64, 65.
Sure.
And we had, I mean, on speed. We use speed to get these fish's like attention. Like we would change up our speed throughout the cast like pretty drastically from like super slow rolling to also just like burning. And it was just a full on high pressure blue skies, just post frontal, BS. And then these fish are just flying around the figure eight like they're ready to eat, like it's pre-storm or something like that. They never open their
Sure.
mouths, but like that was getting them to trigger. Like that day, like if you pull paused a rubber bait, they weren't going to come near the boat. But if you were giving them speed with like straight retrieve baits with blades or not, they were just flying in. So like I don't know. Speed is definitely a trigger, I think. Like I think if I mean, I guess I don't know when you'd say take off the glide bait and go to speed, but don't be afraid to go with speed. I agree with what you're saying for
Yeah.
sure.
And even like right away, opening day when I have people out in the boat, they know this. We know what baits can work, but we're all experimenting. We don't
Hmm.
know what's going to happen. We have no idea. Like we know where the fish are. We know what we should be throwing, but we don't know what they want. I guess we never really know what they want, but especially this time
I
because we
wish we
have no
did.
prior homework to give
Yeah,
us a hand.
that's true. That's the other big thing I just realized is that a lot of people are just going in, freewheeling this thing and just kind of seeing what happens on opening weekend, and that's why it can be such a crapshoot. But talking about some of the baits or the speed that we're talking, um, what are a couple of these baits where you're like, oh, I know I'm gonna toss these on, or these got to go out? What are maybe like one or two from a category or three that you like, or as much as you
Sure,
wanna,
sure.
give
Well,
for the people.
I am going to be throwing more gliders this year, right off the bat,
Hmm.
especially when I find big patches of cabbage. So there are going to be areas where there's just big circles, big holes in the cabbage, and those fish will lay down in those things. So to get a glider in there and have that thing slowly work its way in there, not just through it, but up and down throughout that column, is a really good tactic. So I'll be throwing a lot of gliders right off the bat. I do throw a lot of crankbaits too. I rip them pretty hard, but I do switch it up. So there's times where I'm gonna kind of like rip it and then pause it, so it kind of works like a faster glide bait, but with more wobble, and allow that thing to actually rise up to the surface before ripping it back down. And then there's other times where I'm gonna cast that crankbait out. I'm going to start burning it, kind of like a wiggly. I'm going to pause it. I'm going to let that thing again float all the way near or to the surface at least once throughout that cast before going again. We've had a lot of fish where I think that where it moves really fast, it gets their attention, and then they see that death pause, and then once you start getting that thing going again, it turns them on. So yeah, a lot of twitch baits, a lot of glide baits. I'll be throwing a limited amount of rubber if I think that they're going to be a little bit more aggressive and I can snap it through that shallow vegetation. But that's pretty much what I'm going to be sticking with. You know, obviously bucktails too, but bucktails still aren't my favorite because it's just a piece of moving something. You know, I feel like those bucktails, like, yeah, they eat bucktails year round, but like they really eat bucktails late spring into the summer, all throughout the year, obviously. But like, I feel like you have to get a bucktail pretty close to a fish to get them to go that time of year.
And it's hard. Certain ones are hard to slow roll over. I mean, if you're fishing with like 1 to 3 feet of clearance over some of these weeds, that's tough. You're just going to get hung up, or you're just going to be burning it too fast. And like you're saying, they're laying in the weeds. They don't see the bucktail, and then you cast too far to the right of them now as you're going down the shoreline, you're screwed, you know.
Yeah.
You didn't get that one close enough.
It's a bait that either moves moderately fast or extra fast. You know, there's no pausing, there's no nothing, you know, that we can do with any other bait to let it sit there, whether it rises up or sinks really slow. So that's where just bucktails are not my favorite. Not saying they don't work, but you know, there's certain places where they would work. You know, like opening day on Green Bay, I'd be throwing a bucktail.
This
I want to cover.
This might be me just looking to spend money, maybe, but
I can send you my Venmo, man. I'll give you like high five whenever you need one.
Do you have a favorite jointed crankbait for the spring?
Favorite jointed crankbait?
I've been looking for one.
Nope.
Yeah.
Something similar. I can tell you something very close, which would be a Cranky Nitro.
Cranky Nitro?
Yep, the shallow version. It's not jointed, but it's a half rubber bait. You know? It's one of those things too where you can get that thing to dance around a little bit differently because they have that soft rear section, if you will.
You got one of them, Brian. It's in highlighter orange, your favorite color.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Nitro. I thought that's what that was.
You do have one.
I got smoked on one today.
Okay.
That was the one that I got smoked, but I thought it was a tree. But in my defense, there was a tree like right there, and I should have ran into a branch, but it wasn't a branch when we saw it kick off.
You have the one with the whole back end's a big rubber tail, or do you have the one without it?
No, the whole back end's a rubber tail. Okay. So the way that they come is with a curly tail on the back of it. And I was just explaining this to a good friend of mine today. There's different applications. So like, I'll call it the curly tail. So with the curly tail, I like ripping that thing, like kind of like a glider, you know, like pumping it. I can get that thing to kick left and right. And then it has a super slow death rise to it, which is just unbelievable. I love that in that bait. And it's also really good with that curly tail to do just a straight retrieve. Okay, just really slow, straight retrieve. Now, if you order these from Roger, he also has these replacement tails that are boot tails. Okay, kind of like a swim bait tail. And I put those on once when I was in the river because I found that the curly tail was catching too much water in the current. So I couldn't get that bait to do what I was having it do in a non-current situation. So, and then again, it matches the hash of the shad that are typically found here in southern Wisconsin. So that's why I switched to the paddle tail. So you can get one of those baits and use it in so many different applications. It's really cool.
Yeah, I didn't realize it, but we have a bright orange one with the tail, and then we also have a white one without the tail, and I haven't given the one with the tail enough love, so I'll definitely be throwing that back in the box this weekend.
It's really cool. I mean, like I still throw shell invaders too. Great bait, and it's because of that rubber back half. Especially in if you get into current areas, that helps quite a bit because it kind of cuts through there a little bit better than the straight design. But yeah, I mean, you can do so much with that because that tail is always moving when that bait is not moving. When you're not moving it, I should say.
That's good. I mean, you got to know what your bait's doing when it's doing nothing. That's
Yeah,
definitely important.
I mean, you watch that thing float up on a death rise. I mean, it's so slow, and you let that thing come all the way up to the top, and you're seeing that little tail dancing. And you once that thing breaks the surface, you give it a good rip, and it's a big bubble trail, and there's freaking musky right behind it. It's so cool.
Just tantalizing to them. They just have to eat it up.
Yes.
They so on a note of the crankbaits, I got a question for you, Michael. If you're ripping these out in the cast, doing whatever, pull pausing, twitching, you're doing your thing out there. Are you going to at one point just go into a straight retrieve so you can do a good figure eight, or are you twitching it right to the boat and trying to convert them that way, or maybe mixing it up, or what are you doing for like boat side maneuvers with these crankbaits?
Sure. So a crankbait, I will get that thing within 10 feet of the boat, and I'm going to let it rise up. I'm going to let it rise to the surface, and then I'm going to rip it back down, and then I'm going to go into a straight retrieve into a figure eight. All my figure eights for any bait that I throw right now is retrieved in a figure eight like a bucktail. Okay. So whether it be a suic, whether it be I guess not all of them, maybe not a glide bait, but I'll get in on this, okay? Because we got to talk about glide baits. So I find with pull pause baits that rise, I don't like that because these fish are following it in, and then they have this tunnel vision sort of deal. So they just see this bait. And then when this bait all of a sudden gets close to the boat and the bait stops, the world opens up around them. Then the bait moves, they see the bait move, then the world opens up around them. This is what I'm guessing. Okay. There's more pressure on these fish. They're smarter. They know what's going on. So with like my suics, with my crankbaits, I keep everything a straight retrieve in that figure eight. Period. No pull pause. Same with rubber. Rubber is never pull pause. If I do, it's going to be in the top of my figure eight while it's going away from me on the corner. And I'm going to rip it up and I'm going to pause it there for a second. And if it doesn't need it there, it will not touch it.
Yeah, that's spot on. I think we've seen that. I don't know how many times we've actually gotten one, if any, to eat a rubber bait where you're just hopping it. The fish, I don't know. They just don't
I
find
think
it,
they
or
used to. They used to when rubber first came out, without a doubt. I actually read that in a Musky Hunter magazine years ago. I mean, this was like, I don't even know how many years ago, 8, 9, 10 plus years ago, about that, ripping it up into the corner. And I was like, I'm going to try that. And then I think it worked once in the past like 3 years.
Oh God.
It works in St. Clair. They bite things in the figure eight in St. Clair all the time. So, excluding St. Clair and excluding Lake of the Woods, okay?
Yeah.
Fish do not figure eight like that anymore, besides those two bodies of water.
We're talking about northern Wisconsin here for this.
I know.
Here's another question for you. How many times do you get one in the figure eight during opener. Is that fairly common? I'm trying to think back. I don't think we get many in the figure eight that we
No.
catch. We
Pretty
just see
skittish.
it.
No. No, especially around opener, no. I don't see that happen pretty much ever anymore.
So we don't need to figure eight.
What's that?
So we don't need to figure eight this weekend.
You do if you want to see them. If you want to look at one, and be like, hey, I had a shot at that. It was a 42-incher. That would have been cool to hang on to, right? No, I mean, you always should. Don't get me wrong. You should always figure eight because you don't know exactly what these fish are thinking, and if they're on a different, if their light switch is on. So I'm just saying in general, we're just not seeing fish figure eight like they did 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Every year it gets tougher, and it's going to continue to get tougher. So, I've seen my figure eight fish go way, way down during the day. At night, they've gone way up.
Yeah.
Way up. It's like they, I remember back in the day at night, they would smoke things. And now they wait for it to move a different direction.
It's a night and day difference. Sorry for the pun.
We got to get more night fishing in this year on our end because I don't think we had a ton of at least I didn't have a ton of follows last year, but then our couple hours of night fishing got absolutely blown up a foot from the boat. So I think it's definitely worth a shot.
It's just something that you got to get comfortable with. I was so uncomfortable for years while I was doing it because you can't see. If you can't,
I like the feeling of it. It's spooky.
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about. Like you feel uncomfortable because you don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
one of your senses is gone.
That's what's so cool about it. Yeah,
it's just.
Oh, should I talk about this glide bait stuff quick?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, what do we got?
So when a glider comes in, if I see normally since the glider's moving so slow, I'm going to be able to see that fish from a decent ways away. And if I see that, I'm actually going to stop that bait, open up the spool. I'm going to feed it line so it doesn't have to pull it from the spool to sink. But I like those glide baits to sink, especially ones that have a nice wobble to them on their way down. Because if you get a fish into the figure eight on a glide bait around here, you're just going to look at it for the most part. If you're lucky, you might catch it. But if I see those things, I'm going to open up that spool. I'm going to feed it line so it doesn't have any resistance, not to where the tail's falling or faster than the head. I want that thing to fall flat and have that nice body roll. And once I count that thing down, 3-4 seconds, get out of my line of sight, you can twitch that thing next to the side of the boat, just like you were twitching like a tube. You can turn that trolling motor on and you can just start twitching that thing.
For sure.
And we've had some really cool bites where that fish just disappears and you're twitching it for 10, 20 seconds and then kaboom. And it's even cooler because you can't see it, but you have that feeling like, oh man, she might be down there still.
So you're opening your spool when you see like a lazy follow and you're letting it free fall when you know there's a fish behind it.
Yep, correct. Yep. So and just to keep that distance between me and that fish away, or as small as possible. We did that late last year in the fall too, and that worked really well when we'd have those fish show up and they were showing up a little bit deeper and we dropped that bait down and just kind of twitch it right next to the side of the boat, and they'd more times than not they'd take a swipe at it.
That's interesting. I'd have never thought that. I'd have always thought like keep up, fairly steady tempo with a glide bait. But especially in the spring, what you're saying makes sense. Like when these fish are going to be timid, even coming to the eight, drop it down and get out of the light a little bit. Sure.
Well, and most glide baits that I've used, hellhounds, blunt-nosed gliders, phantoms. If you watch those things sink, they have a really nice belly roll to them. So when they're not moving, they're moving. again,
Yeah.
it's another different kind of action, and it's drawing that fish's attention where that bait is in their line of sight, and if it's slowly sinking, they can keep up with it, and it's kind of keeping their mind on like, where's that thing going, rather than where did that thing disappear off to? Oh, I give up.
Yeah.
So,
I like
and then
I
it
like
keeps
that.
their face off of my ugly mug.
Sure. Yeah, that's
Till they're
another
in it with you in
cause.
the camera.
You think the
Yeah.
ladies don't like this face? The
Right.
man, the Muskies hate it even more.
Even the big girls.
Oh God.
That I appreciate that tip for the gliders. I've never thought of that at all. And I think the only boat side action I've ever had on gliders is when I already did a whole turn around. I never saw a fish behind it, and I'm looking at Jupiter and Mars up there in the sky, and then I get walloped. Like that's from a fish that I
Sure.
never even seen. So like I don't know if it was there from the previous cast under the boat, came unglued when it was just kind of doing circles. I don't even who knows what I was even doing in the figure eight, but it's something that is not easy to replicate. That's for sure.
No, not at all. I watched the guys figure 8-1 on Lake of the Woods on a Phantom for 7.5 minutes and a bit.
I mean,
Jeez.
golly.
This is why I say figure eights in Lake of the Woods are fairy tales now down here.
Yeah.
So when you
Yeah.
see all that stuff online, you're like, that's not real unless if you're there.
Yeah.
That's insane.
That's nuts. Come on, Northern Wisconsin, get back to it.
Yeah. Well, it's not just northern Wisconsin. It's all over the place. These fish are smart.
That's
I'm
true.
getting off topic. I'm acting like this is a normal podcast between us.
Yeah, I
This
was
isn't
gonna say,
good.
wait a
So
second
I
here.
apologize. I am
You're talking
all
about
over
opener
the place.
still?
Yeah, right. Get me back on track, guys.
Are you scared of size of bait in the spring? Or are you more so you'll throw any size, just depends on like your action with it?
No, I'm not afraid of size at all. I don't believe that small bait crap in a minute. I believe in matching the hatch that you're fishing around. I know 2 years ago I had two guys come out with me on opener, and we caught one on a 10-inch tube and one on a 10-inch crankbait.
Sure.
That was the opening day.
Yeah.
And those fish were black. You know how crappies turn black? Muskies can do that too. You ever seen that?
Yeah.
How dark they get in spring? Dude,
Yeah.
like these things were just
Gnarly.
black. And we were like, wow, this is so cool. So, and yeah, it just depends on the hatch that you're around, or not the hatch, but the forge that you're around.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that definitely makes sense. Like I was
I
saying
kind of
in-
like bigger baits because a lot of times you can work them slower, if you need to,
Mhm.
with just a little bit more drag on that bait, if you need to work something slow. But then with that big bait, you can also work it fast too. So
best of
Yeah.
both worlds.
Do you have any good opener stories from years past to maybe give the people some false hope for what's ahead?
oh man, I'm gonna tell you about this kid that caught that fish on a monster tube. All right.
Let's do it.
We're driving to the next spot. I'm going to this creek that flows into a lake that has really nice weeds on it. It's a great spot. And up until this point, we've been fishing for 4 or 5 hours. We may have saw one or two. Fishing was kind of slow. Kind of expected that again, opener. So we're driving over to this creek mouth, and I was like, yeah, there's a crib over here. I want to drive over just to see if the bait's on it. Because typically the bluegills will still be on those cribs around opener before they stage up to spawn. And so I drive over these cribs, and all of a sudden on side imaging, I just marked this. It was right under the boat, and you can see the shadow. And I was like, there's one right there. And I have a 17-year-old kid and a 15-year-old kid in the boat from Minnesota. Okay. Their parents let them hire me never talked to me, and they sent them over here. Okay, so like,
Oh my God,
it was like cool. Like people, that's cool. People trust me with their kids. This is awesome.
They're gonna learn today.
So
learn.
I look at this. I point it out, and the kid grabs his rod. He goes, "Where is it? Where is it?" I was like, "No. There's a boat over there. And they're fishing muskies. I don't want them seeing us cast on this crib." And you should have seen his kid's face. He looked at me like he wanted to just kill me, just murder me. So I was like, "Don't worry, she ain't gonna go nowhere. The bait's there. We're gonna come back. And we're gonna cast at it." But meanwhile, I was thinking like, "Damn, I really wanted to cast on that thing, but I got to keep my cool. Like, we can't blow this crib up." So we go over to this other weed edge, and then the other kid catches his first muskie of the day. So boom, nice 44-incher, really nice one.
Damn.
And we see the other boat go away. I was like, "All right, you guys ready to go back on that crib?" He goes, Yeah. So we fly back over on that crib. Kid's second cast on the crib. First cast wasn't even on the crib. First one landed right on it. Boom, smokes this thing. It was his first Wisconsin muskie, his first casting muskie. It was so exciting. So it was that was one of the coolest openers I've had that I can remember. So, and I had a blast with those kids. I dropped them off at the boat launch, and they were like, "Yeah, my mom will send you money on PayPal." And I was like, "Holy cow! I'm not gonna get paid for this trip." But I was in the car. I said that to myself. I was like, "I don't care." I had so much fun with those kids. They were just hilarious.
You're just out, babysitting. You're just out babysitting.
Yeah, no kidding. Absolutely.
And checking on your good old resident muskies out there. The old crib residents. Gotta love them.
Yep.
Do you have any guide trips for opener on the books, or nothing till later?
Yeah, no, I'm booked out this weekend, and then I'm kind of spotty for the first couple weeks, and then it gets busy. But are
you typically booked on opener? Like, people are chomping at the bit to get out?
It all depends. I have some repeat clients that hire me that weekend. They're just up there and they have a lot of fun with me, it seems like. But yeah, they know what I know. I tell them up front, "Hey, it's gonna be tough. We could have a shot, we could not have a shot." I can say that all year, but there's definitely I don't feel this unconfident come late June and on.
Right.
That's where I'm like, my tail's wagging and salivating, I'm getting really excited.
Tail's wagging.
People are looking at me in the boat like, "Gosh, is this kid on drugs?"
Yeah.
He's so excited to hit the spot.
I know it's a good fishing day if I go past you on the water and you're just out there just wagging your tail while you're driving. Just
oh man. Next time you
bit.
see me out on the water, I'll wag my tail.
Oh, hey, oh.
Whoa, what
Oh, not like that.
Is that a full moon out there? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It's real full too. It's real white.
All right. So I think overall sounds like you're pretty set for opener up there. Brian, you got any other further questions, or Michael, anything on the top of your mind that maybe we missed tonight? Some last little nugget, or maybe not?
Yeah. No, I think we covered everything. Just yeah. Just
I got a question
know
for
everybody's
you.
excited about going out fishing. Make sure you have all your necessary tools for taking care of these animals. That's the only thing that I really want to stress. I know everybody really wants to catch a muskie, but when I worked at a bait shop since I was 12 years old for many years, when I had new people come in there and say that they wanted to go catch a muskie, I would sell them a net and all the pliers and all the hook cutters before I'd sell them a rod and reel.
Yep.
So make sure you have that stuff. Take care of these things. They're getting smart. We don't have near the amount of fish that are being stocked in these lakes, so take care of them, please.
Good tips. Brian, do you have something there?
Yeah, I just said, well, I'm sure there's gonna be a listener who's thinking like me, but top water on opener, viable or not? Oof.
Oh, absolutely. Why not? But again, I keep it slow, especially prop baits. A lot of times
Flaptail.
the first thing I see people do in my boat is just rip prop baits, no matter what brand it is. Pop, 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 pop. I like that thing just going pop, 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 just enough to make that deep popping noise. Then we got our walk the dog baits, and all that. So, I mean, if you see some warmer water temperatures and you see some fish that are spawned out, without a doubt, topwater is the way, can be like one of the better options for post spawn fish to get their attention and get them to eat.
Good to know.
It's
Good to
to
know.
hear.
All right,
Brian,
well,
walk the
now I
dog
got you
opening
backing
morning.
me. Yeah, I can't take any flack from Gus and Max now. I got you behind me.
Yep, Brian will be. That's all right. You can roll top as much as you want, Brian.
I just got. I know it's supposed to be low wind, so I know one of the mornings we're gonna get there. There's gonna be some dew on the water. It's gonna be dead flat calm.
Oh yeah.
I'm not gonna have a choice but to put it on.
Yep, you'd be dumb if you did.
What's your topwater? What topwater are you going to put on?
Probably bomb squad flat tail and just creep it nice and slow.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I like it. I like it.
I'd like to throw the Weagle more. We just haven't had any luck on it, and I don't know. I feel like if there's a time of the year though, earlier in the year might be it.
Oh, throwing a Weagle?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna be throwing Rapska's bait here soon. When he sends me my new one, I'm really excited about that. So,
Ooh, nice.
Who is it? You cut out. What is it?
Josh Rabska.
I've heard of them.
His
Yeah.
walk the dog bait.
Aren't they like really noisy? Aren't they really noisy?
They're
or something
awesome.
Like that? Yeah.
They sit heavier in the water, so they push more water, make more noise.
Sweet. What size
and then when you get those fish that come up and stab at it, because a lot of times that's what they do, they stab at it. Like the old jackpots are so light, they just push them like a beach ball.
Oh, gotcha.
So a little bit of weight in those can help you out. So it's a low percentage hooking bait anyways, but sometimes it's the only time to get a bite. And sometimes on those days when you're not getting bites and you get bit and don't catch it, you still got bit, baby.
True. Truce to that.
One bite today.
Big time. What's one bite one time? Come on. And what size is that walk the dog? Is that like a
He's got a few
6-inch?
different ones,
8?
but I ordered the 10.
Oh,
I think he
big
just
dog.
perfected the 12. I think that's the one that he had at the Wisconsin Fishing Expo, or maybe he told me about it. I might not even be able to talk about this, but who knows? He's got new stuff out, baby.
Okay, sounds good.
Who knows?
It's gonna be out eventually, no matter what.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, that's cool stuff. Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming on here tonight. You've dropped plenty knowledge bombs for the listeners to get everybody on the right track for opener. Man, I'm stoked. I know you are. Let's go make this a good opener. So before you head out, just drop your guide info and yeah, appreciate you coming on tonight.
No, absolutely. Before I do the guide info, thanks for having me on. Sorry to all the listeners about me talking about not just spring fishing, but fall fishing and everything in between. Like I said, I'm on a podcast with you guys. I have fun and I really like to talk. So, but yeah, thanks for having me on. But yeah, you can reach me on my cell phone at area code 608-695-9073. My email is hanson.michael608@gmail.com. And I should talk about my business name. It's Namakagon Area Guide Service. And I'm guiding out of 6 different counties up in northwestern Wisconsin.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. And if we get really down bad out there, like we did in the fall, maybe we got to hop on IG Live again together. And
yeah, we should. That was pretty funny. I was pretty amped up when I accidentally hopped on that video chat.
That was so
we were dying
cool.
laughing. We had no idea what we were doing, and then we're like, "Oh shit, Michael Hanson's in here." We're like, "What up?"
We thought at a moment it's
It
like,
was
can
like,
anybody
man, the
just
one time I
join?
logged on my Instagram, I was like, oh, a live video, and then join. I was like, oh,
Yeah, I was gonna
Join.
say we didn't know what we were doing.
I
It's
was
like,
like,
did we
yeah, I
just make
want
a
to
live
watch it.
where we didn't know if like we made it where anybody can join. We didn't know what we were doing at all either. So that was
Hey,
just
it
too
worked
funny.
out.
Did did. It was basically
Well,
like
yeah,
a
I mean,
mini pod.
yeah, right.
For our eight listeners.
Oh goodness. But yeah, no, thanks again, guys, for having me on, and I hope you guys have a killer opener. Well, and a killer year too. I'll give you that
Yeah.
one as well.
You too.
I don't wish
Appreciate
that for
it.
everybody, but I hope you guys have a good year.
You wouldn't
Thank
be
you.
saying that
Thank
if we
you.
were in Hayward.
Yeah. Yeah, no, probably not. No, I would. You guys are good people. I like good people. I don't care where they're at. If they're good people, they're good people.
Likewise, yeah.
Appreciate it,
Hopefully
Michael.
we'll link up for the fourth time later this summer and see where you're at guiding.
Ooh, nice. The Brett Favre episode. I like
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
it.
go.
Sweet.
Awesome.
All right,
Well,
we'll catch you later.
Thanks
yeah.
again, guys.
See you, Michael.
Yeah. Take care.
All right. Well, that wraps up our interview segment on this week's pod. Shout out to Michael for coming on. A great guest as always. He's becoming a local resident here on the pod, so we can't thank him enough. We've
Shout
tagged
out.
up two different corners of the state, I guess. Corners in the northern half of the state with Green Bay and Hayward. Now we'll end it here in Vilas County. Gus, what kind of conditions have we had, over the last couple of weeks here leading into opener, water temps? I mean, what can the people expect in general?
Well, overall, we've had some pretty mild temps this May. If anything, slightly below average in outside temps. Recently, we have had a good bit of rain and a couple spikes into like the mid 70s, and I think one day it did hit mid 80s. That was the first time this year, and that definitely jumped the water temps. It felt like for a while there they were just hovering at 55 for, like a 53 to 56, depending on what lake you were, for like a really long time, and then now it's kind of finally like your shallow classic stain stuff is like pretty well into like a 61 to 63 degrees. Um, expect maybe a touch warmer actually, maybe by opener. And then the crystal clear stuff, I'm still seeing sub 60. And those are actually, well, I mean, the stain stuff, you don't really see many muskies in the shallows because it's just stained and tough to see. But the clear lakes, I have been seeing a ton of, beat up muskies with just tons of scars on them. And they're kind of floating around either kind of the shallow, not the shallowest stuff, but maybe where it slopes off into a couple feet out to like just hovering above like some of the deeper weeds that you can still see. And that's what I'm still seeing there. You know, the muskies have kind of been still eating some of the bass lures. Still recently lost a couple low 30s that were, eating rapalas, and you had one eat a drop shot worm too. Just some wacky stuff. So with that being said, opener's only a week away. Not much is gonna like change drastically. So
It
with that
looks
being
like
said, don't be afraid to bring out the wacky rigs, get
yeah,
the
little
worms
Ned
out.
rig.
Yeah.
It
Just
looks like we'll at least have consistent weather. Like I think Wednesday, Thursday, Friday going into it. I think it's like a high of 68 or so. And if
okay.
I had to guess,
That's good.
we're probably not gonna have. We've had it like a couple springs in the past, couple openers in the past where there's like a whatever week to 2 week window after the spawn where the fish are pretty loaded into the weeds and they're all fairly actively feeding before they kind of disperse from their spawning spots. I would assume that's probably not going to be the case. I mean, I'm sure there's still going to be fish, relating to those shallow spots, but
Hmm.
what do you think? Do you think it's going to be fish out deep, fish on the break, fish shallow, and good luck finding them, or
I mean, yeah, I guess we just throw in there the whole good luck. Go get them, everybody. But
Keep your
no,
head up.
I think a little bit of our game plan is gonna stem off of we're not going to places that are completely unknown, and we're also not going if we do go to a place we know, or if we're going to a large body of water, it's going to be a place we know really well. Because I feel like those are the ones where you can get lost really quick. And I don't know where I said this. I don't know if I said this recently or not. Oh, I was just recently on the Road Rules podcast with Greg Thomas and my good friends Peter and Clayton. And I think I said something on there where like go to your lake and find like I know this is really cliche, but like finding the bait is more key than usual. It seems like wind is shifting around the warmer water and like I after just driving around I don't know, over a dozen I guess lakes now in the shallows. There's sections of the lakes that are just desolate of like any life. And then all of a sudden I get to like one corner or one area where maybe the wind's blowing in from a different angle or it's blowing into it or if it's not. And all of a sudden it's just like lit up with everything. And then all of a sudden, oh, there's two muskies laying around. So that's the stuff that I've kind of been looking for. And that's what we're going to key on. Like we're going to be bouncing around, fishing some smaller lakes and just like fish one spot shallow, where the green weeds are, or maybe just like the outskirts of a spawning bay. If that doesn't work, try a deep spot. If we just can't find anything, it's probably on to the next one. And that's pretty much it.
We've always said like I mean because we've had a last couple openers for us have been rough. I mean we've
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think we've gotten caught up in starting shallow, like trying to find green weeds. I remember us finding bait, finding like the perch and stuff, and then there's no muskies. So we always said like after those tough weekends, like, all right, we're gonna go to a river, like we're gonna totally change it up next year. And I don't think that's in our
Yeah.
plans this year
I
again,
don't
but
know.
I do think if it's gonna be like a year when the fish, up in the Vilas County region are, some of them are still spawning, some of them are 2 weeks post spawn. I don't think it's a bad idea if you're familiar with river fishing to go get in some current and hopefully find more
Yeah.
active fish.
I think that would be a good way to go about it. So I think the one thing that I'm worrying about us finding is that like just I found on some lakes where like just post spawn where you catch some real beat up fish, they're gonna eat pretty willingly that we found. Like if you can nail that on the head, and then once you get to like that 1 to 2 week window, like after they spawned, I feel like you just get a bunch of dispersed and grumpy and fish that are kind of all over because like some lakes don't even have the bug hatch yet, but then there's also not developed weeds yet. I mean, we've been on some like clear lakes where like we've looked in open water, there's nothing. We looked in shallow water, there's nothing. And then we're just like, I don't know what to do. And that's
Grew
why,
wings.
yeah, it's what's that?
Said they grew wings, they flew away.
Yeah, I know. They just hopped up on land and yeah, got the hell out of there. I don't know. Sometimes it feels like that. And I guess, more on that, what I just said before is don't be afraid to be really, really mobile and hop lakes entirely. That's that's probably the biggest tip. I'm talking all this stuff, but like if something's just not right, we're not gonna like grind it out on a 200-acre lake for 7 hours with us,
Yeah. I mean,
hucking
if
every bait known to man. Like if they're just not going that day, they're just not going. Like we could hit the lake on a totally off day or wrong time of the spawn.
Yeah, I mean, going off of being mobile, if you start the day on like a stained smaller lake, like under
Hmm.
500 acres, and you can't find a fish, you can't side image one, they're not shallow, they're post spawn, they're in that weird lull where who knows where they go. Then maybe turn to look at your bigger, clear bodies of water, which are probably going to be a couple weeks behind that lake, and the fish are
Hmm.
probably going to be in that familiar shallower, weedy structure.
They
Um,
they for sure will. I mean,
yeah,
there's like you might maybe not find, the female you're looking for, the big one. But like just today I was out scouting some new water, checking on some old water, and A few of them were stained, a few of them were crystal clear. And in those clear lakes with, like I said, it was still sub 60 and, a couple spots I think hit 60 degrees, but there was food in shallow. The weeds were, all right, I guess. They're not I'm sure they're gonna grow really well this year, but they're not like our temps aren't warm enough and like the days haven't been warm enough and we haven't had enough actually sunshine to grow the weeds like to where they honestly could have been with the early ice out. But there's bait in there. I mean, I saw schools upon schools of suckers. There's been some lakes where I've seen the suckers spawning on shorelines. So I would assume if the suckers are hanging around the shallows, there's bluegills and perch. Like the muskies can't be far. If you're not seeing life like that in the shallows, I mean, then you're gonna have to go right out to like some deeper weed edges if you got green weeds there. We're gonna probably be hammering a lot of wood and rock. That's pretty notorious for being pretty good this time of year. Wood, rock, emerging bulrush. That's good too if it's not up yet and you can get lures through there. Man, I don't know. I mean, we're gonna be four deep on our boat. It's gonna be you, me, Max, and our buddy Jack, and we're gonna be hooking on every single angle under the sun.
That's
And I'm sure the kitchen sink is gonna be hooked in the water 7 times over. So they're
yeah,
not
it's
they're
gonna
not gonna
be
not see anything out there. They're gonna see every bait in the box.
it's gonna be a revenge tour for us four after we did
Right.
horrible for the Southern opener. So
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I'll definitely be a lot more confident when we get out on the water on Saturday, being on familiar lakes, which will be good. But I don't know. I got a feeling, I think bucktails will be in play.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
Obviously glide baits and your typical spring like smaller jerk bait presentations, but yeah, I think if you can like slow roll a small bucktail, like I always like to throw the double six spanky blade and you can kind of like slow churn that and I don't know. It's been kind of like a sustained, semi-warm spring, I guess, even though the water temps aren't too crazy high, but I feel like these fish should be at a point where they're
It's
charged
consistent.
up with a little bit of energy.
They should. I mean, and on top of that, if you're not throwing blades or something and you're not throwing rubber or glide baits or, 4 to 7 inch twitch baits, I definitely depending on how the weather goes, Brian, as I told you, I don't know if I told you yet, but when I was down south of here, I was actually visiting a buddy to play golf 2 hours south, and there was a ginormous mayfly hatch, like the hexes and everything, just giant. And that's a little well, I guess that's south of here, so it's a little different. But if that happens soon up here, that's going to be ahead of schedule too. And that is going to actually bring the food chain out into open water. And, if we're fishing small lakes, it shouldn't be too hard to find. And hopping around like a reg dog out there is probably going to be a game plan that might get tossed in
Get
with
out the live
us.
scopes. We're going bug hatching.
We're going hatching. We're going shooting.
Just shooting bugs, of course.
Yeah, of course, of course. If you use a live scope, please use responsibly.
Your discretion is advised.
Yeah. Yeah. There's that. I know that I'm sure with us we're probably gonna throw in a big lure or two. It's gotta happen. I mean,
Mhm.
I was just saying, like all those suckers that are shallow, those are 12 to 18 inch fish. I mean, that's a mag dog. That's a 10-inch crankbait. That's you know, something like that might be in play. And then on the reverse side of the spectrum, like I wasn't joking when I was saying get out the wacky rigs, get out the drop shots. Like this is happening like, right before this podcast is going to come out where I'm having muskies eat tiny little like 2 to 4 inch baits, whether they're worms or rapalas or whatever. And depending on what system you go to, not much is going to change. And like some of those, and even one of them, I had a client out with going for smallmouth, and he had like a 42 eat a 2.5 inch Rapala
Oh,
like at the boat and then got off after a couple head shakes. I mean, this thing was it didn't like inhale it. It just like came up and just kind of, I don't know, like hit it from the corner and just got it in the corner. It's not like engulfing it, but like
Yeah, that's my
sometimes these
favorite when they're
fish,
biting like that.
yeah, when they're biting like that on
Barely
tiny
nosing
little
it.
walleye baits, bass baits. Yeah. I mean, they're not going to be extremely committal, not every single fish. I mean, they just came off of a spawn, and who knows how many actually even spawned this year. I also got a report of a somebody out walleye trolling get a big old female that wasn't even spawned yet. It had no scars. It was pre-spawn, and that was on a lake that was well over 60 degrees in a shallower lake. So, and they caught it deep. So when I'm saying target shallow, deep, and in between, small, big, and
So
medium,
I
slow and fast, I mean, they might be scattered this year pretty good.
does this is a dumb question, but so does that fish? Is she to stay a thick girl all year, or does she just kind of poop those things out and get skinny again?
That's a good question, man. We might have to ask her. We have to go find her. Go find us a
Like,
big girl of
is
our own.
someone in July gonna pull out like a basketball in this muskie's belly, or like is she gonna kind of let those things get out of her, since she's not gonna actually do a whole spawning ritual?
I mean, dude, I think that happens every year. I mean, every year we catch, there's at least a fish or two we catch in like July or end of June. That's just, you
Way
know,
too fat.
just way too fat for like what it should be. Because obviously, once you get into like mid-July and on, like the water
Then
temps are
they're
high enough.
eating.
They're eating food. But
Yeah.
like if we're talking mid-June, late June, and even like 4th of July, we've put in some pretty hefty, sizable, fish by weight, not always by length, and it's got to be from holding in their egg weight or something, or they just gorge all the time. I don't know.
Not
It's
when we're
just
fishing.
yeah, I know. Not when we're out or where we're out at. They just apparently like to be lockjawed. But no, I'm overly excited, long awaited Northern Wisconsin opener. Once this is open, I mean, for everybody else out there listening, not long after there's the Minnesota. Um, I don't know all the exact openers out east, but I think like New York is right around the corner, similar to Minnesota, and then there's obviously Canada lastly. But by, a couple weeks from now, it's full on musky season for everybody. And I'm just beyond stoked and ready to get out there hucking. Lucky that we got to get out like a month ago, but yeah, ready for redemption.
Yeah. Yeah, we got some things to get figured out. Yeah, I honestly have no clue what to expect. I'm just keeping the expectations low, hoping that I'm in for a nice, pleasant surprise. But yeah, I think we'll all be meeting up Friday afternoon, playing a little
Mm-hmm.
golf, easing the musky nerves so that we can
Yep.
wake up fresh and ready to go. So unfortunately for Max, he'll be coming back from Vegas to get his ass whooped in golf by both of us.
That's
And
facts.
then yeah, get back to the place, probably hold and touch and sharpen hooks on new baits and old baits till midnight and get up and get after it.
Mm-hmm. How early are we getting up on opening morning? I know this is an exact question that Max would ask if he was here.
Yeah. What time's sunrise gonna be at? Like 6 or
Earlier than that these days.
um damn.
First lights at 4:44
Oh
this
hell.
morning. Oh hell no.
Uh
Might as well just go out at midnight.
yeah.
Same thing.
Night fishing this weekend? All right.
Hey man, I mean, we dropped the ball on that last year when it was, cooking 85 on opener. We should have just
Yeah.
fished the morning, went home, and then went back out at, like 7 p.m.
I
to,
don't know. I guess
midnight. But
depends how long the drive is to the launch where we're going, but I would say major minor dependent. I'd want to get to the launch by damn.
damn is right.
5:30.
Oh hell. I think we
What is
can
that?
do
A
it.
4 a.m. alarm?
I mean, it is whatever you want it to be. I mean,
I
if you
think,
gotta
you know,
shower and powder up, do what you gotta do. But
yeah, part of the balls. I think one of the mornings we'll have to do that and just get over it. But the next morning, depending on if we caught fish or didn't, maybe we'll hit the snooze button.
yeah, that's what the next morning's always gonna be dictated by. Um, I mean, I don't know. I haven't really looked fully at the weather, but it looks like we're getting, like you said, 60s, possibly jumped into the 70s. It looks like there's just random amounts of rain potentials throughout kind of the weekend here and there
Yeah.
for Eagle River, Vilas County
Like
area.
all of Wisconsin, down by me, it's the same way. It's like every
Same
day is like
way.
a 30-40% chance. I mean,
Okay. So intermittent rain, I don't hate that. I think that's pretty solid weather this year and it's super stable. We're not getting like it's like most of the nights are in the mid 40s and they don't change by much more than 2 degrees and all the highs are like 67 to
oh my
71. So like
gosh. Yeah. I was just looking at that, dude.
look how
Sunday.
consistent that is.
Yeah, every day is almost identical. Sunday, though, the problem is it hits 71. So there's going to be a billion jet skiers out there, which would be sick.
Yeah,
Um,
that'll be fun.
but I mean, right now it's showing pretty mild winds, like 8 mile per hour wind every day.
I didn't even
Kind
look
of
at wind.
swirling winds, but yeah, not too bad.
Oh wow, it's like it's money. It's opening days out of the west. I think that's gonna be the maybe the day. Well, we'll
Yeah,
see.
they shift all the way to east, northeast then the next couple of days, but who knows?
A lot of shifting wind. A lot of shifting wind is always kind of like a hit or miss, but consistency is the best. During the change is very good too, but I mean, if it's changing like every hour, uh, just go grab a bite, take a break, and get back
Yeah.
after it later. I know we'll be taking a few, breaks to just kind of break up the day, but we're gonna be fishing
Yeah, if
hard.
If we're getting up at 4 and getting on the water by 5:30, I mean, it better be at a lake with a bar on the water. We can at least take a hour breather and grab some
Yeah,
lunch.
yeah, we'll have to do that. There ain't no way. I mean, yeah, we gotta we gotta take it easy. I mean, luckily at least I've been hucking a few times here and there, but I know you and Max and Jack are. I mean, unless you've been hitting the lab, hitting the gym
Oh, you
lately.
already know where I'll be at.
Yeah, I know. I don't even know what I'm saying then. You'll be good. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
You'll be hucking the freaking Husky Deuce the entire weekend. Probably the quad dog too.
Yeah, the quad dog that doesn't exist in the boat yet.
Right,
Maybe
right.
soon. Coming soon in September. Stay tuned.
It's September.
All right.
Well,
Well, I think it's about time I put a bow on this one here. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it without Max. Let us know in the DMs if you guys like this little tandem here. Fill us up with
hmm
some, constructive criticism, applause, whatever you got for us. And
Love to hear it.
yeah, we won't let Max check them, so you guys can say whatever you want in there. It'll be all private.
Yep.
And yeah, let us hear it.
Yep. Go ahead and go to Muskies on Tap on Instagram and yeah, hit us up there. If you want to give me a follow, my Instagram is Suggs Fishing and also on Facebook as Suggs Fishing Guide Service or add me as a friend, Gus Manty. You can also find my guide info on www.suggsfishing.com. As of right now, it's been pretty busy for booking in June and July. I will probably send out something shortly on the last couple small dates left of June and July. Those are pretty much almost booked up and but if you are wanting to get out more so in like the late summertime and fall time, I have the peak times open there. So if you really want to get out during some sort of, moon phase, new moon, full moon, let's get out and get after it out there while I still got that open. So don't be afraid to hit me up. We'll give you guys a full report on the next pod of how the opener went, good or bad. We got to get her out there. So just praying for a good opener. Everybody out there, have fun, be safe. You got any other tips there, Brian? Fucking pray.
Um,
Uh,
Yeah,
That's what
huck
I
and
like to say.
pray, stick and stay.
Make them pay.
Yeah, if it gets rough, get yourself a pack of Marby Reds and a case of Bush Light. Just relax, put the trolling motor on, and you know what I'm saying.
Yep. Yeah. Wait, what?
Yeah, that'll
All right.
work.
All right, take it away, dog.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Muskies on Tap. Shout out to our guests this week with Phil and Michael coming on to give you guys some knowledge bombs going into the opener this weekend. We have finally made it out of the dark days of winter, and muskie fishing season is here. Everybody, tight lines this weekend. Stay safe on the boat. Nobody falling in. Nobody fishing too high of current. Let's keep the egos in check here as we get back into the flow of things. And yeah, hopefully everyone can put a big old musky into the bag this weekend.
Hey.